Aquatic mysteries are perhaps the most fascinating ones out there, given that the ocean and all the lakes are like this huge world of their own that's barely explored. And unlike the other iceberg videos that you've probably seen on this topic, I've created my own entries I've piled up on all sorts of things like missing ships, ghost islands, cold cases, and many more. Without further ado, welcome to the Aquatic Mysteries Iceberg. Let's get straight into it now with the first entry of Tier 1. Franklin's Lost Expedition. Franklin's Lost Expedition, which commenced in 1845 with the ships HMS Erebus and HMS Terror, embarked on a mission to navigate the last uncharted sections of the Northwest Passage in the Canadian Arctic. The expedition, which was led by Captain Sir John Franklin, included 129 men and aimed to traverse the Arctic to gather magnetic data and complete the mapping of the Northwest Passage. Despite the technological advancements and substantial provisions, the expedition faced a lot of challenges, leading to its disappearance and sparked numerous search efforts. The initial part of the voyage proceeded without incident. Franklin's ships were last seen by Europeans though in Baffin Bay in July 1845 before they entered the Canadian Arctic archipelago. After this sighting, the ships and the crews simply vanished, prompting extensive searches that spanned over a century. Initial clues about the fate of the expedition emerged in 1850 with the discovery of 3 graves from 1846 on Beach A Island, indicating where the crew had first wintered. Over the years, more artifacts and evidence of campsites were found on various Arctic islands, but the ships themselves remained undiscovered. Reports from the Inuit, though, who lived in the region, described encounters with starving men from the expedition and provided accounts of the locations of the ships. These oral histories were critical in forming the narrative that some crew members actually survived for a while even after their ships became icebound. Forensic analysis of bones found at these sites suggested that the crew suffered from multiple health issues, including lead poisoning, which was likely caused by the lead-soldered cans used for their provisions. The bones also showed signs of scurvy, a disease caused by lack of vitamin C, and possibly other diseases like tuberculosis. There are also signs of trauma and marks consistent with cannibalism, indicating extreme conditions and starvation. The mystery, though, began to unravel further with the discovery of the actual ships. In 2014, the wreck of Erebus was discovered in the southern part of Queen Maud Gulf, followed by the discovery of Terror in 2016 in Terror Bay. These findings confirm some of the Inuit oral traditions and provide new data for analysis. The ships were found really well preserved, with items aboard the ships, including personal belongings and navigational tools, being really well intact. Discovery of the ships also reignited interest in the Franklin expedition, prompting new scientific studies and archaeological surveys. The ships were found really well preserved, with items aboard the ships, including personal belongings and navigational tools, which were really well intact. So yeah, the search for Franklin's lost expedition not only solved one of the maritime world's greatest mysteries, but also contributed to the larger field of polar research and even showed the capabilities of Inuit survival strategies in the Arctic environment. Champ. Champ, often referred to as Champy, is a creature said to dwell in Lake Champlain, which spans across New York, Vermont, and parts of Quebec, Canada. This lake monster has gained a lot of attention not only from cryptozoologists but also from local tourists and folklore enthusiasts. The legend of Champ closely mirrors those of other lake monsters like you all would have heard of, like Nessie and Ogopogo. The origins of Champ, though, trace back to Native American tribes, mainly the Abenaki and the Iroquois. These tribes had stories of a creature known as Gitskog, believed to inhabit the waters of Lake Champlain. The narrative was well established in indigenous folklore long before European settlers arrived, though, and began documenting their own encounters. One of the earliest recorded sightings by a European occurred in 1819 when Captain Crum on Balwaga Bay claimed to have observed a gigantic black monster described as being around 187 feet long, with eyes as red as the noon sun and a white star on its forehead. This sighting is one of many that dot the chronology of Champ's existence through the centuries. The year 1873, though, marked a really significant increase in sightings, which culminated in various reports, including one by the sheriff himself of Clinton County, Nathan H. Mooney. The surge in reported sightings also caught the attention of P.T. Barnum, the famous showman, who offered a reward for the capture of the beast, which he hoped to exhibit in his traveling show. However, the most pivotal moment in the saga of Champ came in 1977 when Sandra Mansi took a photograph while on vacation with her family. The Mansi photograph, as it came to be known, reportedly shows Champ emerging from the lake. This image, though, has been scrutinized and debated by experts and skeptics for a long time. Some suggest it depicts a real, unknown creature, but others think it's like a floating log or just an optical illusion. Despite the controversy, though, the photograph remains one of the most compelling pieces of evidence cited by those who actually really believe in Champ's existence. Throughout the years, numerous studies and expeditions have been launched to uncover the truth behind the legend and the mystery. These include sonar scans and underwater surveys, which haven't yielded conclusive results though. The lack of definite evidence, though, has not dampened the enthusiasm of local residents and monster enthusiasts who continue to report sightings and share tales of this creature, but yeah, it's still a mystery. Mary Celeste. The story of the Mary Celeste begins long before the famous 1872 voyage that rendered it a famous maritime mystery. Constructed in 1861 at Spencer's Island, Nova Scotia by builder Joshua Dewis, the vessel was originally named Amazon. It was a brigantine, carvel built, meaning its hull planks were flush rather than overlapping, which created a smooth exterior. Registered in nearby Parrisboro, the ship measured 99.3 feet in length with a beam of 22.5 feet and a depth of 11.7 feet. Initially, Amazon's career was fraught with a lot of incidents. On its maiden voyage, the ship encountered trouble when its captain, Robert McClellan, fell ill shortly after departing and later died. The vessel itself, though, also met with several accidents, including a collision with fishing equipment off Maine and another ship in the English Channel. Despite these early misfortunes, though, it continued to operate mainly between the Atlantic coast of North America and Europe, engaging in the timber and general cargo trade. In 1867, after running aground off Cape Breton Island during a storm, Amazon was so severely damaged that it was declared a wreck. However, it was then salvaged and eventually purchased by Richard W. Haynes, an American mariner who significantly refurbished and renamed it the Mary Celeste. So this is where it all begins, since under this new guise, the ship was registered in New York and began anew. Yeah, its misfortunes were far from over, culminating in the mysterious events of 1872. On November 7th of that year, Mary Celeste departed from New York City bound for Genoa, Italy under the command of Captain Benjamin Spooner Briggs. The cargo hold was filled with 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol, a potentially volatile cargo. Accompanying Captain Briggs were his wife Sarah and their young daughter Sophia, along with a crew of 7 highly competent sailors. Briggs himself was a seasoned and respected captain, known for his meticulous nature and the care he took in selecting his crew, ensuring they were as reliable and experienced as necessary. The journey proceeded uneventfully at first. The ship followed its planned route across the Atlantic, but on December 4th, 1872, the crew of the De Gratia, another brigantine, spotted Mary Celeste adrift between the Azores and Portugal. Upon boarding the abandoned vessel, the De Gratia's crew found the ship in a disheveled but sound condition. The sails were partially set, but some were missing altogether, and the ship's lifeboat was completely gone, indicating a hasty abandonment. Inside, the ship was wet from water that had entered to the skylights and doorways, but it was still structurally sound. The galley equipment was also neatly stowed away, and the cargo of alcohol was intact, with no signs of theft. The personal belongings of the crew and passengers were also undisturbed, and ample provisions remained. The ship's logbook found in the mate's cabin recorded entries up to 9 days before the discovery, with nothing amiss indicated in these final entries. The salvage hearings in Gibraltar explored various possibilities, including foul play, piracy, and insurance fraud, but the lack of concrete evidence led to more speculative theories. These range from natural phenomena like seaquakes and warspouts to more sensational ideas such as sea monsters or paranormal activity. But yeah, a definite thing has not been established yet, so it still pretty much remains a mystery. Angikuni Lake. Angikuni Lake is located in the Kavalik region of Nunavut, Canada, and spans about 510 square kilometers. It's part of a series of lakes along the Kazan River, with Enadai Lake to the south and Yakhed Lake to the north. Despite its remote location and harsh conditions, the lake is known for its really cool beauty, surrounded by rocky outcrops of the Precambrian Shield. The area is a migration path for barren ground caribou, and the lake is home to species like lake trout, northern pike, and Arctic grayling. However, Angekuni Lake is more famously associated with the legend that dates back to November 1930. The story centers around the sudden and unexplained disappearance of an entire Inuit village located near the lake. According to reports, a fur trapper named Joel LaBelle, known for his familiarity with the area, came upon the village only to find it disturbingly silent. The scene he encountered was unsettling, being half-cooked meals, abandoned clothing still threaded with needles, and deserted huts. Strangely, there was also no footprints or signs of departure that were visible, despite the apparent sudden exodus. Adding to the eerie atmosphere too, LaBelle reported finding the corpses of 7 sled dogs, starved to death, and a disturbed grave whose surrounding stones were undisturbed. The mystery deepened when LaBelle contacted the authorities, leading to an official investigation by the RCMP, or the Royal Canadian Mounted Police. Despite extensive searches, no trace of the villagers was ever found, nor any clue as to where they might have gone. The story first gained widespread attention when it was reported in a 1930 article by Emmett E. Kelleher in the Danville Bee, which described the disappearance of 25 villagers. This tale was later picked up and embellished in various books and articles, some even linking the disappearance to paranormal activities or attributing it to extraterrestrial interference. However, subsequent investigations and reports have kind of cast a doubt on the veracity of the initial story. An internal report by the RCMP in January 1931, authored by Sergeant J. Nelson, suggested that there might have been exaggerations and factual inaccuracies in the original accounts. Nelson pointed out inconsistencies and questioned the reliability of Joe LaBelle's account. The RCMP eventually dismissed the story as an urban legend, suggesting that it was more fiction than fact. Also, researchers like Brian Dunning of Skeptoid have critiqued the story, acknowledging the existence of the 1930 newspaper article, while also recognizing the sensational nature of subsequent retellings. Tamam Shud Case. The Somerton Man mystery, which has intrigued both the public and investigators for decades, began with the discovery of an unidentified man's body on December 1st, 1948, on Somerton Beach near Adelaide, South Australia. This case has remained one of Australia's most enduring mysteries, added with various puzzling elements, including a cryptic note and a lack of personal identification. Basically, on the morning of his discovery, the Somerton man was found lying against the seawall, dressed in a suit, but without any identification. His pockets contained an assortment of items, being unused train tickets, a pack of cigarettes containing a different brand than the package, and a piece of paper with the words Tamam Shud, meaning ended or finished in Persian. This scrap was later matched to a specific copy of the Rubaiyat of Omar Khayyam, which raised the question of whether the man's death was him taking his own life, given the thematic focus on endings and farewells in the poem. Investigators were able to trace the book from which the scrap had been torn though. It contained several intriguing clues, being a local telephone number, another unidentified number, and sequences of letters that appeared to be a code, which has never been deciphered. These discoveries only deepened the mystery, mainly as the book had indentations on the back cover that suggested that these writings had been made with some force, hinting at their possible significance. Despite extensive investigations that included the examination of train and bus tickets, it seemed the man had traveled to Adelaide from somewhere, but his moments prior to death were uncertain. The autopsy did not conclusively determine a cause of death, but suggested that there was poisoning, although no traces of poison were found in his body. Interest in the case was rekindled when recent DNA analysis tentatively identified the Somerton man as Carl Charles Webb, an electrical engineer and instrument maker from Melbourne, though this has not been conclusively proven. This potential breakthrough, however, doesn't really explain why Webb would have been in Adelaide, why he died in such mysterious circumstances, or the significance of Tamam Shud. Also, the ongoing investigations have explored the possibility that he might have been involved in espionage, given the historical context of the early Cold War period. His unknown activities, the undeciphered code, and his unclaimed suitcase found at Adelaide railway station, filled with clothes and tools, all contribute to the espionage theory. Kaz II. The Kaz II, often referred to as the Ghost Yacht, is a case that draws comparisons to the Mary Celeste that we talked about. This 9.8-meter catamaran was discovered adrift on April 20th, 2007, about 88 nautical miles off the northeastern coast of Australia near the Great Barrier Reef. The yacht was found in a condition that suggested sudden abandonment by its 3-man crew, all of whom were residents of Perth, Western Australia: Derek Batten, age 56, and brothers Peter Tunstead, age 69, and James Tunstead, age 63. Despite extensive investigations and search efforts, the fate of these men remained unsolved, leading a trail of speculation and theories in their wake. The departure of the Cause II from Arroweye Beach was on April 15, 2007, marking the beginning of what was intended to be a leisurely cruise around Northern Australia, ending in Western Australia. The yacht was well equipped for such a voyage, with Derek Batten, the skipper, having completed a sailing course and undertaken 2 previous extended trips on Cause II. Despite the crew's relative inexperience in open sea sailing though, they were still prepared with the necessary safety and navigational equipment, and the boat was stocked for their journey. The first sign that something was amiss though came on April 18 when a helicopter pilot reported seeing the Cause II drifting near the Great Barrier Reef, suggesting that the crew might be in distress. It was not until April 20th though that maritime authorities caught up with the drifting yacht. Upon boarding, they encountered a scene that suggested that the crew had vanished abruptly. The yacht's engine was still running, the table was set with food and flatware, and the laptop was open and turned on, and even all emergency systems were functional. Notably, the yacht's life jackets were all accounted for, and a small dinghy was still secured on the stern. The only abnormalities were a badly shredded sail and the absence of a life raft, though it was unclear if one had ever been on board. The forensic examination of Cause II began immediately after it was towed to Townsville on April 20th. Investigators found the cabin neat and tidy except for some items displaced during the tow, such as magazines and a wine cask on the floor. A thorough search revealed a firearm too and ammunition stored under Batten's bed, none of which appeared to be missing or used recently. Also, the boat's GPS system data indicated that Cause II had veered northeast into rough seas shortly after departure, aligning with the onset of squalls. And a crucial piece of evidence came from a video recording made by James Tunstead on the morning of their disappearance. The footage showed calm and choppy conditions, with none of the men wearing life jackets, hinting at a relaxed atmosphere moments before they had vanished. The video captured the last known activities of the men, with Batten at the helm and Peter Tunstead fishing from the aft stairway. After the disappearance, the search and rescue operations were extensive, involving aircraft, Coast Guard, and various rescue units. Despite these efforts, the search was eventually called off on April 21st, with further attempts on April 23rd being unsuccessful. The official investigation, culminating in an inquest led by Queensland State Coroner Michael Barnes, concluded in August 2008 without definite answers. The inquest proposed a scenario in which a mishap occurred while retrieving a fishing lure entangled in the yacht's rudder, possibly causing one or more crew members to simply fall overboard. Efforts to rescue the overboard crew might have led to further accidents, including the possible knocking overboard of the remaining crew because of unexpected boat movements. Alternative theories about the disappearance range from sudden weather changes causing the men to go overboard to more speculative ideas involving collisions with unidentified vessels or even deliberate abandonment. However, without concrete evidence, these theories remain speculative. Ghost of Captain Kidd. The story of Captain Kidd's ghost guarding his treasure on an island off the shores of Pelham is an interesting piece of local folklore that's persisted through the years. William Kidd, better known as Captain Kidd, was a notorious pirate in the 17th century who is believed to have buried treasure on an island in Long Island Sound near Pelham. Despite numerous treasure hunts over the centuries, none have successfully recovered the pirate's alleged riches, and many have reported eerie encounters with his ghost. The legend suggests that Captain Kidd's spirit still haunts the island, protecting his hidden treasure. Over the years, various individuals and groups driven by greed and curiosity, have ventured to the island in hopes of uncovering the loot. According to local stories though, these treasure hunters have often been scared away by the sight of Captain Kidd's ghost, sometimes described as appearing with a drawn sword guarding the treasures fiercely. One particularly detailed account involves an old treasure hunter who, after much effort and exploration of the island, believed he had finally located the spot where Kidd's treasure was buried. Just as he discovered a concealed cave-like area beneath two large boulders with a stack of wooden boxes that could potentially hold a treasure, he encountered the ghost of Captain Kidd. The apparition, glowing and wielding a saber, reportedly chased the treasure hunter away from the island, keeping the treasure undisturbed. This tale, like many other ghost stories, mixes historical facts with supernatural elements to basically create a narrative that has interested people for generations. The thing is, Captain Kidd really did exist and was tried and executed for piracy. His story became embroiled with myths of buried treasure along the northeastern coast of the United States, mainly in areas like Long Island Sound, which are known to be pirate haunts during the late 1600s. Hestalian Lights. The Hestalian Lights are a mysterious and unexplained phenomenon observed in the Hestalian Valley in central Norway. These lights have been reported since the 1930s and appear both day and night throughout the valley, which spans about 12 kilometers. The lights manifest in various colors, being predominantly white, yellow, or red, and can last for a few seconds to over an hour. They may move at high speeds or drift gently, and sometimes they hover in midair. Significant interest in these lights peaked between December 1981 and mid-1984, with sightings occurring up to 20 times per week. By 2010, sightings had reduced to between 10 and 20 per year. The phenomenon has sparked a lot of investigations, starting with Project Hestalen in 1983 and is shaped by UFO Norge and UFO Sivrich. Subsequent studies such as the Hestalen Automatic Measurement Station set up in 1998 and the MLUP programs have involved scientists and students and have even been supported by institutions like Oswald University College and the Italian National Research Council. Various hypotheses have been proposed to explain the Hestalian lights. Misidentifications of natural and man-made objects, such as astronomical bodies, aircraft, and car headlights, account for some sightings. Other theories suggest more complex natural processes, like lights being a form of plasma, or even possibly macroscopic column crystals that are forming. Lake Bodom Murders. On the early morning of June 5, 1960, in the surroundings of Lake Bodom near Espoo, Uusimaa, a violent tragedy unfolded that will leave 3 teenagers dead and 1 severely injured. The victims, Mela Imrali and Anja Tuleki, both 15 years old, along with their boyfriends, Seppo Antero Boisman and Nils Wilhelm Gustafsson, both 18, had set up camp along the shores of Lake Bodom. Their plan for a pleasant weekend camping trip turned disastrous when they were brutally attacked between 4 a.m. and 6 a.m. The assault was notably vicious and frenzied, involving stabbing and blunt force trauma directly to their tent, indicating that the assailant attacked from outside without entering their temporary shelter. The aftermath of the attack was horrifying. By mid-morning, a passing carpenter discovered the gruesome scene, being the tent collapsed, the bodies of 3 teenagers lifeless with multiple wounds, and the 4th, Nils Gustafsson, badly injured but still alive. The police investigation that followed was fraught with errors, including a failure to secure the crime scene and inadequate collection of evidence, complicating the already complex task of solving the murders. In the wake of the murders, several suspects were considered. The most notable included Carl Valdemar Glustrom, a local kiosk owner known for his hostility towards campers, and Hans Assmann, who lived nearby and behaved suspiciously in the days following the murders. However, none of these people were conclusively linked to the crime due to the lack of hard evidence and credible alibis. Decades later, in a surprising turn of events, Nils Gustafsson himself was arrested in 2004 after new forensic analysis suggested his possible involvement. The subsequent 2005 trial, however, acquitted him due to insufficient evidence and procedural failings in the original investigation, leaving many questions unanswered and the public fascinated and horrified in equal measure. The Lake Bodom murders has since inspired a lot of films, books, and music, including the name of the famous Finnish metal band Children of Bodom. They also continue to be a subject of true crime podcasts and documentaries, drawing new generations to the dark allure of this unsolved mystery. Sardinia's sunken Atlantis. The question of whether Sardinia might have been home to Atlantis has interested historians, archaeologists, and enthusiasts for years. This interesting narrative is rooted in a combination of historical text, geological events, and archaeological discoveries. The island of Sardinia has a rich history and numerous ancient ruins that offers a compelling case for such theories, especially considering the dramatic natural events that have shaped its landscape over millennia. Historical and mythological accounts, including those from Homer and Plato, suggest a cataclysmic event in the Mediterranean region that could align with the destruction of a significant civilization. Plato's narrative described the civilization being punished by Zeus for moral decay, which led to its ultimate destruction by natural disasters, possibly linking it to the mysterious and advanced society described in his works as Atlantis. Sergio Frau, a respected Italian journalist and historian, has spent over a decade investigating this hypothesis, supported by a variety of experts including geophysicists, historians, and archaeologists. Their explorations in Sardinia have focused on the analysis of the island's geography and numerous archaeological sites to uncover evidence of a major natural disaster like a tsunami or an earthquake. One of the focal points of the research has been the nuraghi, which are ancient megalithic edifices found throughout Sardinia. These structures, which are primarily built during the Middle Bronze Age, are characterized by their complex constructions, including central towers and surrounding village remnants. Notably, the Sunaraxi site at Brumini, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, exemplifies these characteristics and provides a lot of insights into the island's ancient inhabitants. The theory suggests that a comet striking close to the coast of Sardinia could have triggered a gigantic tidal wave, devastating the island's advanced civilizations. This hypothesis is supported by geological evidence of large-scale water movement and sediment deposits that suggest a sudden and violent inundation, which could be indicative of such an impact event. This catastrophic event might also explain the abrupt disappearance of the Tyrrhenian civilization noted in various ancient texts and could align with descriptions of Atlantis' sudden vanishing beneath the waves. The research team, including experts like Stefano Tinti, a geophysicist specializing in tidal waves, has analyzed sediment layers and geological formations across Sardinia, finding evidence consistent with massive flooding caused by a tsunami. Also, the island's location in the central Mediterranean and its resources in metals and other valuable commodities make it a plausible candidate for a prosperous and influential ancient civilization like Atlantis would have been. The ancient texts, along with archaeological findings, suggest that Sardinia was a significant cultural and trading hub during the Bronze Age, which could have given rise to legends of a rich and powerful island nation like Atlantis. Alright, Tier 2, Baltic Sea Anomaly. The Baltic Sea Anomaly refers to an indistinct sonar image captured by Peter Lindberg, Dennis Asperg, and their team from Ocean X, a Swedish group of treasure hunters and salvage operators. This occurred during a 2011 expedition in the northern Baltic Sea, specifically in the center of the Gulf of Bothnia. The team, which was known for their explorations aimed at locating sunken treasures, stumbled upon this unusual sonar image while searching for an ancient shipwreck. The image revealed what appeared to be a 60-meter diameter circular object with distinct features that sparked various speculations about its origin, leading to widespread media attention and multiple theories regarding its nature. Following the initial discovery, the Ocean X team revisited the site in 2012 with the intent to obtain clearer sonar scans and further investigate the anomaly. This second expedition drew a lot of media coverage, mainly from tabloid sources, which fueled speculation and theories about its object's origin, including suggestion that it might be a sunken UFO. To analyze the nature of the anomaly more scientifically, samples of the stone were then retrieved from the site by Ocean X and given to Volker Bruchart, an associate professor of geology at Stockholm University. Bruchart's examination of these samples indicated they consisted primarily of granites, gneisses, and sandstones. One particular sample was a piece of basaltic volcanic rock, which, while not unusual in itself, was somewhat out of place in the context of the seafloor's typical composition. Bruchart suggested that the features and rocks from the site likely have natural origins though, formed through glacial and post-glacial processes typical of the northern Baltic region. These processes could involve the transportation of rocks and other materials by glaciers, depositing them in their current location. Critics of the sensational interpretations of the anomaly highlight the limitations of the sonar image though obtained by Ocean X. Experts such as Hanuman Singh from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution point out that the sonar equipment used was of low quality and possibly misconfigured, leading to distortions in the image that make it unreliable for detailed analysis. Singh noted that several factors in the image acquisition and handling rendered it visually useless for accurately identifying underwater formations. And further skepticism arises from the analysis of other experts who examined the imagery and samples. These experts generally agree that the anomaly is likely a geological formation, such as a rock outcrop, possibly a glacial deposit, or even just a sediment accumulation. Charles Paul from the Monterey Bay Aquarium Research Institute and other marine geologists also suggested that the anomaly might be some cluster of rocks or just a result of sediment displacement from fishing activities. HMS Daedalus Sea Serpent. HMS Daedalus was a British warship that launched on May 22, 1826 as a fifth-rate frigate of the modified Leda class, characterized by a full-rigged ship, sail plan, and armed initially with 46 guns. This setup included 28 18-pounder guns on the upper deck and several other guns on the forecastle and quarterdeck. Despite armament and robust build, HMS Daedalus never served in original capacity as a frigate, but instead was laid up in reserve shortly after completion. After 18 years without active service, she underwent significant modifications at Woolwich Dockyard in 1844. These changes included being cut down to a corvette and reduced to a 19-gun configuration, which altered her role and capabilities a lot. In the subsequent years, HMS Daedalus served various roles, including as a training ship and finally as a drill ship for the Royal Naval Reserve at Bristol, where she remained until being decommissioned and sold for scraping in 1911. One of the most notable events in the ship's history, though, occurred on August 6, 1848, during a voyage to St. Helena. Captain McCoy and several of his officers and crew reported an extraordinary sighting of what they described as a sea serpent, marking one of the most famous early recorded encounters with such a creature by the Royal Navy. The sighting was reported as involving a large serpentine creature swimming with 4 feet of its head visible above the water surface, with an estimated additional 60 feet submerged. The creature was described as having a dark brown skin and yellowish white throat, moving at a significant speed. The sighting lasted about 20 minutes and was detailed enough that Captain McCoy remarked he could have recognized its features had it been a man he knew. This event stirred a lot of interest and debate, especially since it was from the Navy. Various theories were proposed about the nature of the creature, ranging from an unknown species of giant sea serpent to more skeptical interpretations suggesting misidentification of known marine animals like whales. In 2015, evolutionary biologist Gary G. Galbraith speculated that the creature cited might have been a sei whale, arguing that the features described in historical accounts could be attributed to a sighting of a known animal rather than an unknown marine monster. Persian Gulf Ruins. The mysterious ruins lying at the bottom of the Persian Gulf present an interesting narrative, one that challenges our traditional understanding of ancient civilizations. Ellen Lloyd from ancientpages.com highlights a really cool hypothesis that suggests that these submerged structures might be remnants of some of the world's earliest civilizations, possibly even predating both the ancient Egyptians and the Sumerians. These underwater ruins, discovered in regions that are now submerged beneath the Persian Gulf, were part of a prosperous Neolithic population thriving around 5500 BC. This civilization was engaged in fishing, cultivating dates, and practicing animal husbandry, indicative of a well-developed societal structure. What makes these findings particularly significant, though, is the sophistication of the stone structures and artifacts found at these sites, which imply a high level of architectural and cultural development. Jeffrey Rose of Birmingham University suggests that these underwater settlements could be connected to the mythical Dilmun, a land mentioned in Sumerian texts. This ancient kingdom is speculated to have been a vital commercial hub that flourished around 2000 BC, often associated with the island of Bahrain, but never confirmed. Rose suggests that the relocation of Dilmun might have been this now submerged area of the Persian Gulf, potentially linking it to the biblical Garden of Eden. The discovery of these sites is not merely about locating physical structures, though, but more about piercing together the narrative of human civilization. The Persian Gulf Oasis, as it was termed, may have been home to humans for upwards of 100,000 years before being swallowed by rising sea levels. This scenario suggests a significant rethinking of migrational patterns and cultural development in ancient times. Rose's research indicates that these areas were not just peripheral outposts, but central to the dispersion of the Ubaid culture, which is known for its unique pottery and is traditionally associated with southern Mesopotamia. The presence of Ubaid artifacts in these underwater sites suggests a widespread cultural exchange and possibly a migrational pattern prompted by climatic shifts and rising sea levels. The Octavius Ghost Ship. The Octavius is an 18th century ghost ship that has interested many because of its mysterious legend. According to lore, the Octavius was discovered adrift west of Greenland by the Wheeler Herald on October 11, 1775. The discovery revealed a haunting scene, being that the entire crew of 28 was found frozen and perfectly preserved below deck, including the captain, who was found sitting at his table, pen in hand, as if he had been writing in the logbook at the moment of his death. The Octavius had reportedly left England for the Orient in 1761 and successfully made its journey, arriving in 1762. The captain, who was hoping to expedite the return journey, decided to navigate through the Northwest Passage. This decision proved disastrous as the ship became trapped in the ice north of Alaska, effectively sealing the fate of the crew and the vessel. The last log entry dated November 11, 1762, indicating that the ship had been frozen for 13 years before its discovery. This story, though, while interesting, shares a lot of elements with other maritime ghost stories, like that of the schooner Jenny, which was similarly found with its crew frozen. Over the years, the story of the Octavius has been retold with various modifications, like in earlier versions where the ship was named the Gloriana and did not mention the Northwest Passage. The earliest known account dates back to 1828 in a Philadelphia newspaper, where again, the ship remains unnamed and does not mention the fabled passage. The vanishing of the SS Poet. The SS Poet was originally built as a C-4 class military troop carrier named General Omar Bundy in 1944, and was later converted into a bulk cargo freighter and renamed several times before being acquired by the Hawaiian Eugene Corporation in 1971 and given its final name. The Poet set sail from Philadelphia on October 24, 1980, carrying 13,500 tons of yellow corn bound for Port Said, Egypt. After reporting its position off Cape Henlopen, Delaware at 8:30 p.m. that evening, the ship vanished without a trace. No debris, lifeboats, or any sign of the crew or vessel was ever found, despite extensive searches. The primary theory regarding the fate of the Poet centers on a severe storm with 30-foot waves that it encountered en route. While the storm was really significant, other ships in the area weathered it without catastrophic outcomes, which has led to various alternative theories and speculations. Some suggest that the flooding of the forward hold caused the corn to expand, leading to hull damage and rapid sinking. Others propose more dramatic scenarios involving hijackings or covert operations, though these lack substantial evidence and seem implausible given the logistical challenges they would involve. Among the more grounded theories, though, is that concerning the ship's structural integrity. Known as a part of the Rust Bucket Fleet, the Poet and its sister ships had long been considered barely seaworthy. Reports from crew members of similar vessels suggest that the ships were poorly maintained and prone to structural failures, which could have led to a catastrophic failure during the storm. Regardless of the cause, though, the loss of the SS Poet is a profound tragedy, marked by the disappearance of 30 crew members and leaving their families without closure. Lost Continent of Mu. The concept of Mu, a lost continent alleged to have once existed in the Pacific Ocean, originates from the 19th century works of Augustus Le Plongeon. Le Plongeon, a British-American antiquarian, was deeply influenced by studies of Maya ruins and his interpretations of pre-Columbian legends. He first proposed the idea of Mu, associating it with other mythical lands like Atlantis. Le Plongeon believed that Mu was a source of ancient wisdom and that refugees from its destruction founded other great civilizations of antiquity, including those of Egypt and Mesoamerica. Le Plongeon derived the name Mu from Charles Etienne Brassier de Bourbourg's mistranslation of a Mayan document known as the Toronto Codex. Brassier believed he had found references to a continent that sunk under the ocean due to a cataclysmic event. Le Plongeon expanded on these ideas, incorporating them into his own theories of global ancient history, suggesting that Mu had been a global source of civilization. The concept of Mu was later popularized and expanded by James Churchward, who believed that Mu had been home to an advanced civilization. According to Churchward, this civilization had 64 million inhabitants and existed about 12,000 years ago. Churchward's descriptions of Mu are elaborate and detailed, including descriptions of its social organization, technological advancements, and eventual catastrophic destruction. He claimed that Mu extended from the Hawaiian Islands to Easter Island and from the Marianas to the Fijis, making it larger than South America in his accounts. Churchward asserted that he discovered evidence of Mu in ancient tablets he was shown by priests in India. These tablets, which he claims were written in a lost Naga Maya language, describe the continent's sophisticated society and its eventual destruction because of volcanic eruptions and earthquakes. This narrative by Church Ward, though interesting, lacks a lot of empirical support and is basically considered pseudoscience by scholars and geologists. The geological community has conclusively rejected the possibility of Mu's existence based on modern understanding of plate tectonics and continental drift. According to the theory of plate tectonics, continents rest on large plates of the Earth's crust that float on the viscous upper mantle. These plates move, but not abruptly enough to allow a continent to sink or disappear in the historical or human timescale. Also, the oceanic crust where Mu was supposedly located is too dense to support a sunken continent, as continental crust is fundamentally different in composition and buoyancy. Purple Orb. At a depth of more than 5,000 feet below the surface of the ocean off the coast of Southern California, researchers aboard the Avith Nautilus, an exploration vessel operated by the Ocean Exploration Trust, encountered a mysterious purple orb. This discovery took place in a canyon near the Channel Islands and sparked a lot of interest among the marine scientific community because of its unusual appearance and the initial inability of the team to identify it. The orb was first noticed as the submersile's lights illuminated the deep sea environment, causing the object to stand out against the oceanic backdrop. The crew's initial reactions ranged from curiosity to confusion, with various hypotheses being proposed on the spot. Suggestions about the nature of the orb included it being a type of plankton, an egg sac, or an unknown marine creature. As the submersible approached, a crab interacting with the orb added to the mystery. The team decided to collect the orb using a vacuum device on the submersible, transferring it safely to the ship above for closer examination. Once on board the Avith Nautilus, the true nature of the orb began to unfold under more detailed scrutiny. The orb, initially mistaken for a simple gelatinous mass, revealed more complex biological features upon inspection. It unfolded to expose foot and rhinopores, structures resembling ears, and a sort of proboscis extended from the back, identifying it as a gastropod, a type of mollusk that includes sea slugs and snails. The team speculated that it might belong to Pleurobranchs, a group of sea slugs which are less streamlined than their relatives, the nudibranchs, known for their vivid colors and varied forms. The researchers' excitement grew though as they considered the possibility that this could be a new species, as no existing records described a purple Pleurobranchid in the waters of California. Samples of the organism were then sent to Harvard Museum of Comparative Zoology for DNA analysis to confirm its classification and investigate its genetic. Such analysis is crucial for confirming whether this purple orb is indeed a new species, which is a process that can take several months of detailed genetic and morphological examination. Devil's Sea. The Devil's Sea, also known as the Dragon's Triangle, is a region of the Pacific Ocean close to the Japanese coast that has become infamous because of the numerous unexplained disappearances of ships and crafts. This area, which is noted for its mysterious and often dangerous conditions, is sometimes compared to the Bermuda Triangle because of similar tales of vanished vessels and unexplained navigational anomalies reported within its boundaries. Geographically, the Dragon's Triangle is located between Japan and the Bonin Islands, covering a large portion of the Philippine Sea. The area extends around the Japanese island of Miyake, about 100 kilometers south of Tokyo. However, the precise boundaries of the Devil's Sea are subject to debate, with different sources reporting it to be closer to Japan or near the volcanic island of Iwo Jima, roughly 1,200 kilometers from the Japanese mainland. Historically, the region gained notoriety through various legendary and actual events. One of the most famous historical incidents associated with the Devil's Sea is the attempted invasions of Japan by Kublai Khan in 1274 and 1281 AD. During both attempts, Khan's fleets were reportedly destroyed by typhoons that the Japanese believed were divine winds sent to protect Japan from invasion. These disasters contribute to the area's ominous reputation, further reinforced by the findings of Mongol fleet remnants by marine archaeologists. In modern times, the area continued to be associated with maritime mysteries. During the 1940s and 1950s, several fishing and military vessels vanished in the area between Miyake Island and Iwo Jima. This series of disappearances culminated in a significant incident in 1952 when Japan sent the research vessel Kaiomaru No. 5 to investigate these anomalies. Tragically, like the vessels before it, Kaiomaru No. 5 also disappeared, leading to the loss of all 31 crew members aboard. Following this incident, the Japanese government officially designated the area as hazardous for maritime expeditions. The name Devil Sea and its association with mythical dragons stem from ancient Chinese and Japanese lore, which suggested that dragons lived under the sea and could devour ships whole. This mythological explanation was part of a broader attempt to rationalize the inexplicable occurrences in the area through supernatural or paranormal activity. Scientifically, several theories have been proposed to explain the mysterious happenings in the Devil's Sea. Some researchers suggest that the region's high volcanic and seismic activity could lead to magnetic anomalies that disrupt navigational instruments. Others hypothesize that methane hydrates on the ocean floor might erupt, releasing gas that could reduce the water's density and cause ships to sink. These hypotheses aim to provide a more rational explanation for the disappearances, attributing them to natural geological and oceanographic processes rather than supernatural causes. Mariana Trench. The Mariana Trench, which is situated in the western Pacific Ocean, is recognized as the deepest part of the world's oceans. With its greatest depth reaching about 11,000 meters, it serves as a significant point of interest for scientific research and exploration because of the extreme conditions found there. These conditions include immense pressure, which exceeds 1,000 times that of the surface, and temperatures that hover near freezing. The trench was formed by the subduction of one tectonic plate beneath another, a process that draws scientific fascination because of its influence on geological and oceanographic processes. Despite the harsh conditions, though, a surprising variety of life has adapted to survive in this remote part of the ocean. Over 200 species of microorganisms and other forms of marine life have been discovered, demonstrating remarkable adaptations like bioluminescence, which allows them to emit light, and even bodies composed of cartilage rather than bone to better withstand the crushing pressure. Stonehenge of Lake Michigan. The discovery of an underwater structure resembling Stonehenge in Lake Michigan was first discovered in 2007 by Mark Hawley, a professor of underwater archaeology at Northwestern Michigan University. This site was found during a sonar survey initially aimed at locating shipwrecks, which instead revealed something potentially more historically significant. The structure consists of stones arranged in a circular formation and is believed to be at least 10,000 years old. Intriguingly, one of the stones in the outer circle appears to have a carving of a mastodon, an animal that went extinct over 10,000 years ago. This suggests a very ancient origin for the structure, possibly dating back to the last ice age when the lake bed was exposed and dry. The origin and the purpose of this underwater Stonehenge, though, remain subjects of a lot of debate among archaeologists and researchers. While some speculate that could have been a ceremonial site or marker of some kind, others question whether the stones were intentionally placed or merely a coincidental arrangement. The comparison with other known stone structures in the region adds to the possibility that it could be a human-made structure. The difficulty in studying the site, though, arises from the fact that many specialists who might shed light on its authenticity and significance are not divers, which complicates direct examination. This has led to a reliance on remote sensing and underwater imaging technologies to gather data. Meanwhile, the discovery has not received widespread attention from the broader archaeological community, possibly because of skepticism about the site or the challenges associated with underwater archaeological investigations. In addition to the Lake Michigan site, though, the discovery has sparked a lot of interest in other similar structures, like another stone circle on Beaver Island in northern Lake Michigan. This site also features a group of stones arranged around a central stone with unusual carvings. However, like the Lake Michigan Stonehenge, little is definitively known about the Beaver Island Circle, and it's not really been extensively studied or dated, so it's still pretty much mystery. Midman Light. The Midman Lights are a fascinating atmospheric phenomenon reported mainly in the outback of Australia. These lights are known for the mysterious appearances and often described as resembling glowing orbs that hover over the horizon. They're most commonly reported in the Channel Country region, but are known throughout parts of Australia, including Western New South Wales and Northern Queensland. The lights have been part of Australian folklore for a lot of years, with their stories predating European settlement and deeply rooted in the Aboriginal culture there. The name Min Min derives from the Min Min Hotel in the small settlement of the same name, where the lights were notably reported by stockmen in 1918. However, the exact origin of the name remains unclear. The phenomenon has variously been described as resembling fuzzy, disc-shaped lights that can change colors from white to red to green. These lights reportedly have the ability to move, follow people, and disappear suddenly when approached or shot at, only to reappear elsewhere. Scientifically though, the Min Min lights have not been definitively explained, though various hypotheses have been proposed over the years. One suggestion by neuroscientist Jack Pettigrew is that the lights may be a form of bioluminescence resulting from insects contaminated by local fungi, or perhaps a unique form of owl with inherent bioluminescence, though no such creatures have been documented. Another theory is that these lights could be geophysical, meaning that they stem from natural gases or piezoelectric phenomena, although these typically occur in geologically active areas which do not align with all locations where the lights have been seen. Another plausible explanation for the Min Min lights is the Fata Morgana, which is the complex form of mirage that occurs when layers of warm and cold air distort the appearance of objects on the horizon. This phenomenon can make distant light sources appear closer, possibly explaining why stationary lights such as campfires or car headlights might seem to exhibit unusual movement or characteristics from afar. Ghosts of St. Kilda. St. Kilda, a remote archipelago located 40 miles west of the nearest inhabited land, represents a haunting narrative of isolation and abandonment deep within the Atlantic Ocean. The islands mark the most westerly frontier of the British Isles, so remote that they're often omitted from maps of Britain and Europe. St. Kilda's mainland, Herta, once bustling with life, was last inhabited in 1930 and has since become a ghost town maintained as a heritage site by the National Trust for Scotland. Reaching St. Kilda is a pretty hard endeavor as the journey is heavily dependent on volatile maritime conditions. The only means of access is by boat, a journey that can be easily messed up by adverse weather, rendering the islands inaccessible. This journey from the Isle of Skye takes about 3.5 hours through open Atlantic waters. Historically, St. Kilda was a thriving community though, despite its harsh living conditions. The archipelago has since been only sometimes visited since as early as 7,000 years ago, with evidence of Neolithic stone tools and Viking artifacts. By the 17th century, Herta supported a community of about 180 people, sustained largely by seabird hunting, which formed the cornerstone of their diet and economy. The residents harvested birds like gannets, puffins, and fulmars, utilizing every part of the bird for food, fuel, and barter. However, life on St. Kilda was far from idyllic. The inhabitants battled the relentless Atlantic weather and the challenges of a meager subsistence lifestyle on the edge of viable human habitation. They lived in stone houses known as black houses, which were uniquely adapted to the environmental conditions, being built into the ground for insulation against severe winds and cold. Julia. The mysterious sound known as Julia was recorded on March 1, 1999 by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, using the Eastern Equatorial Pacific Autonomous Hydrophone Array. This mysterious sound was detected between Bransfield Strait and Cape Adare near Antarctica, and has interested scientists and the public because of its unusual and haunting nature. Named Julia since it faintly resembles a woman's voice underwater, this sound joined the ranks of other unexplained oceanic noises like the bloop, and has been subject of speculation and investigation in the scientific community. Initially, the origin of the Julia sound was a mystery, leading to a lot of theories about what it could have been. NOAA researchers later hypothesized that the sound was most likely caused by a large iceberg scraping the seabed. This event, known as iceberg grounding, occurs when the bottom edge of an iceberg makes contact with the ocean floor. This can produce a variety of sounds depending on the size of the iceberg and the nature of the ocean floor, and in this case, it produced a noise loud and distinct enough to be picked up by hydrophones hundreds of kilometers away. Despite the logical explanation provided by scientists though, alternative theories and hoaxes have surfaced over the years. One such hoax involved fictional NASA photographs from a non-existent Apollo 1385 mission, which allegedly showed a large underwater shadow in the area where the Julia sound was recorded. These rumors suggested that the shadow was larger than the Empire State Building, hinting at a gigantic, unknown marine creature or underwater anomaly. However, this claim was then debunked as there was no such NASA mission, and the agency's work is largely unclassified, making the existence of secret photographs unlikely. 1968 submarine disappearances. In 1968, 4 submarines from different nations mysteriously disappeared, each vanishing without a trace under mysterious circumstances that remain puzzling to this day. These submarines belonged to Israel, France, the Soviet Union, and the United States. The disappearances prompted a lot of international search efforts and spawned numerous theories ranging from covert military engagements to structural failures and extraordinary weather conditions. The first to vanish was the INS Dakar, an Israeli submarine that had been recently acquired from the United Kingdom. The vessel, which was modified for enhanced performance, embarked on its maiden voyage to Israel but disappeared near the Mediterranean Sea, specifically west of Cyprus. Despite immediate search efforts by multiple nations, it wasn't until decades later that the wreckage was found, suggesting that the submarine might have suffered from a catastrophic structural failure, a common theory given its World War II era design, which may not have adequately withstood deep-sea pressures or rapid diving maneuvers. Just days after the disappearance of the INS Dakar, the French submarine Minerve lost contact and subsequently disappeared during routine operations near Toulon in the Gulf of Lion. The sub was navigating close to the coast when it failed to resurface, leading to an exhaustive but ultimately fruitless search. Theories about its disappearance speculated on environmental factors like severe storms that could have overwhelmed the submarine, suggesting a natural but deadly outcome. In the same year, the Soviet submarine K-129 also went missing while on patrol in the Pacific Ocean, equipped with nuclear ballistic missiles. Its disappearance not only represented a significant loss of life and military hardware, but also a grave security risk due to the onboard nuclear material. The Soviet Union then launched an extensive search, which ended in failure, but not before catching the attention of the United States, which mounted its own recovery mission, partly successful, retrieving some wreckage that hinted at possible internal explosions on board. The last disappearance involved the USS Scorpion of the United States Navy, which was monitoring Soviet fleet movements in the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores. Its loss was particularly mysterious given the submarine's role in intelligence gathering, leading to speculations ranging from an enemy attack to an accidental self-inflicted torpedo strike, a theory supported by later analysis of underwater sound recordings that detected the sounds of an explosion consistent with the torpedo detonation. The simultaneous disappearance of these 4 submarines, though, has spurred a lot of theories, including those suggesting covert Cold War engagements where submarines were either victims of undisclosed hostile actions or technological malfunctions during a period of intense innovation and strategic paranoia. Others propose that these incidents were caused by a combination of human error, mechanical failure, and natural maritime hazards. Blue whale sound. The mysterious decline in the tonal frequency of the blue whale songs globally has perplexed scientists who are striving to unravel the mystery. The phenomenon was first observed by Mark MacDonald of Whale Acoustics, who noticed the need to continually adjust the settings of automated song detectors to capture lower frequencies each year. This ongoing change sparked a lot of analysis of recordings from various populations of blue whales across the world, from the North Atlantic to the South Pacific and even the East Indian Ocean. Research conducted by MacDonald alongside researchers from the Scripps Institution of Oceanography indicated a consistent annual drop in the tonal frequency of these whale songs, but with mere fractions of a hertz. Several theories have been proposed to explain these phenomena. Initially, noise pollution from increased maritime traffic was considered a potential factor, as ambient ocean noise levels have surged by over 12 decibels since the mid-20th century. However, this theory contradicts the expected responses to noise interference, typically being that animals would raise rather than lower their pitch to be heard over the din. Another theory suggests that changes in water chemistry, more carbon dioxide absorption, and more acidic oceans might alter how sound travels underwater. Yet, the scale of these chemical changes seem too minor to solely drive such a significant shift in whale song frequencies. A more compelling explanation might relate to the recovery of blue whale populations following the cessation of widespread whaling. The theory suggests that with more whales in the ocean, there's less need for louder, higher-pitched calls once used to communicate over greater distances. Even in regions where whale populations have remained relatively stable, this downward trend in pitch persists, suggesting a more complex interplay of factors. The most interesting theory revolves around sexual selection and social behavior among blue whales, mainly because only male blue whales sing. It's speculated that lower pitch songs might be associated with larger, more desirable males, leading other males to adapt their pitches downward in an evolutionary mimicry to attract mates. This form of sexual selection could drive a population-wide change in song characteristics. Yonaguni Monument. The Yonaguni Monument, also known as the Yonaguni Island submarine topography, is a submerged rock formation located off the coast of Yonaguni, the southernmost of the Ryukyu Islands in Japan. This formation was first discovered in 1986 and has had ongoing debate about its origin. Geographically, Yonaguni Monument lies about 100 kilometers east of Taiwan and is positioned underwater about 26 meters below the surface. The rock formation is composed of medium to very fine sandstones and mudstones, which belong to the lower Miocene Yaeyama group, which is estimated to be about 20 million years old. The discovery of the monument was somewhat accidental though. It was first noted by Kiyachiro Aratake, a director of the Yonaguni-cho Tourism Association, who was diving in the area to observe hammerhead sharks. Intrigued by what appeared to be architectural structures beneath the area, Aratake's discovery prompted further investigation by Masaki Kimura, a marine geologist from the University of Ryukyu. Kimura, along with other scientists and interested researchers, conducted numerous dives and studies on the site and proposed that the formations could be man-made, suggesting an ancient human hand in their creation. This hypothesis was based on the terrain structures and the sharp, precise edges and angles that resemble steps and walls, which seem to indicate architectural planning. Kimura went on to suggest that these could be the remnants of the mythical continent of Mu, hypothesizing a timeline that places structures as being above the water around 10,000 years ago. However, this viewpoint is not widely accepted in the scientific community. More skeptical scientists, including geologist Robert Scotch, argue that the formations are natural occurrences. Scotch's analysis posits that the structures were likely formed by natural geological processes such as the cracking and fracturing of the rocks due to tectonic activity. The area, which is known for its seismic instability, could easily create such formations naturally over millions of years. The linear and regular frames, which some claim as evidence of human construction, can also be explained by these natural geological processes. Lake Van Monster. The Lake Van monster is a mysterious creature purportedly residing in Lake Van, situated in eastern Turkey near Mount Ararat. Documented sightings of this cryptid stretch back to 1889, although it surged in popular awareness during a flurry of reported sightings between 1995 and 1997. Lake Van, which is Turkey's largest lake, forms the backdrop for these reports. Lake Van's environment is unique, being it's a saline soda lake, making it one of the world's largest closed basin lakes. It spans an area of 3,775 square kilometers and reaches depths of up to 451 meters. The most notable evidence for the Lake Van monster came in 1997 when a university teaching assistant captured a short video that purportedly shows this creature. The footage sparked a lot of media attention and debate among cryptozoologists and skeptics. Critics argue that the ecosystem of Lake Van could not support a large aquatic creature, citing the lake's high alkalinity and limited food sources. Despite these doubts, though, the legend of the Lake Van monster has basically become a part of local folklore and continues to draw interest from both tourists and researchers. The depiction of a sea monster on the Akdamar Church, dating back to 915 AD, suggests that legends of such creatures in Lake Van may have been part of the local culture for centuries. The ghost of the SS Valencia. The SS Valencia, often referred to as British Columbia's ghost ship, has a history marked by tragedy and enduring mystery. Initially launched on March 11, 1882, the Valencia began its service on the East Coast, operating between New York City and Venezuela. In 1886, the ship was sold to the Pacific Steam Whaling Company and was relocated to the West Coast, where it took on various roles, including a brief stint as a troop ship during the Spanish-American War before returning to civilian service. Designed as a smaller vessel, the Valencia struggled with the harsh conditions of the Pacific Northwest, mainly during the winter months. The ship's 30-meter bow, limited visibility from the bridge, and the noise from the waves impacted crew communication. Also, the ship lacked a double bottom, a feature that would have provided an extra layer of security from the hull breaches that were common in rough seas. On January 20, 1906, the Valencia was assigned to the San Francisco to Seattle route, a decision that proved disastrous. The ship departed San Francisco on a clear day with 9 officers, 56 crew members, and 108 passengers aboard. However, by the next day, the weather worsened dramatically, preventing the crew from making celestial observations to confirm their position, forcing them to rely on dead reckoning. This navigational error led the Valencia to miss the entrance to the Strait of Juan de Fuca. On January 22nd, the ship struck a reef about 18 kilometers off Cape Bill on the southwest coast of Vancouver Island. The impact was immediately catastrophic, being a large wave lifted the ship off the reef, tearing a gash in its side. In a desperate attempt to save the vessel and those on board, the captain ordered it to be run aground again. Amidst high waves and severe weather, the situation quickly deteriorated. Although the captain had ordered that lifeboats not be lowered due to the rough conditions, 6 were launched in panic, and 3 capsized and only 1 managed to reach safety. Those who remained on the ship endured harrowing conditions. The ship's funnel, which provided some protection against the elements, eventually collapsed. Rescue efforts were also hampered by the severe weather, which prevented other ships from reaching the survivors. Only a few more lifeboats were launched, one of which was picked up by a passing ship, rescuing 18 survivors, while another lifeboat with 4 people reached the First Nations village. Immortal jellyfish. The immortal jellyfish exhibits a remarkable capability that challenges our understanding of life and death. Typically, a jellyfish's life begins as a larva, which, after spending some time in the water, attaches itself to a suitable surface and transforms into a polyp. This polyp can reproduce asexually, producing colonies that can potentially cover vast areas. The polyp stage then blooms, releasing what are essentially baby jellyfish. These jellyfish spend their existence in what is known as the Medusa stage, drifting through the ocean, and this is where the cycle takes an interesting turn. Under stress or after physical damage, the adult Medusa of the immortal jellyfish doesn't die in the traditional sense. Instead, it sinks to the ocean floor, where its body begins to deteriorate. What happens next has fascinated scientists for a long time, being that the deteriorating tissues revert to a polyp state, effectively restarting its life cycle. This process, which is known as transdifferentiation, involves the transformation of one type of cell into another, allowing the jellyfish to bypass death, turning back into a polyp and beginning life anew. This discovery first came to light in the mid-1990s and was later studied and confirmed by various researchers, including Dr. Lisa Ann Gershwin, who has dedicated a significant portion of her career to understanding these creatures. The implications of such a discovery are profound, presenting a form of biological immortality where an organism can, in essence, cheat death and revert to a juvenile form. This phenomenon isn't just isolated to the jellyfish, though. Similar capabilities have been observed in several other jellyfish species, suggesting a broader biological strategy for dealing with environmental stresses, predation, or injury. This process allows these creatures to survive in conditions that would typically lead to the demise of other species, giving them an exceptional survival mechanism that ensures their persistence in their ecological niche. Tier 4. U-28 Creature. The U-28 creature is a narrative stemming from an event recorded during the turbulence of World War I. This event involved the German submarine U-28 and occurred on July 30, 1915, following the sinking of the British steamer Iberian by the submarine. The commander of U-28, Captain Friar George G. von Frostner, documented the incident and provided a detailed and credible account that has interested researchers and enthusiasts of maritime mysteries for over a century. According to the captain, after the Iberian was struck by a torpedo, it sank rapidly, causing its bow to stick up almost vertically. Shortly after it submerged, though, there was an unexpected violent explosion underwater, which is believed to have been caused by the boilers bursting under the pressure. Remarkably, though, this explosion propelled debris, and astonishingly, a massive aquatic creature high into the air, estimated to be about 60 feet in length. The creature, as described by the 6 officers who witnessed the event alongside von Frostner, resembled a gigantic aquatic crocodile with a body structure featuring 4 limbs with large, webbed feet and a long, pointed tail, and a head that also tapered to a point. The credibility of this sighting is added by the profiles of the observers, being trained naval officers accustomed to recording precise and factual observations without exaggeration. Their descriptions suggest an animal that doesn't easily fit into the known categories of marine life, sparking a lot of debates about the possibility of it being a prehistoric marine reptile like a pilosaur or a mosasaur, which had supposedly been extinct for millions of years. These creatures, known from the fossil record, had body shapes and sizes that could potentially match the description given by the U-28 crew. Another angle explored by some researchers considered the possibility that the creature was being transported by the Buran itself, possibly as part of a secretive naval operation or private collection, and was then released following the ship's destruction. This theory, while speculative, attempts to rationalize why such a creature would be at the surface immediately following the ship's sinking. Heraklion. Heraklion, also known as Thonis Heraklion, is an ancient Egyptian city that once served as a main port for international trade and tax collection before the rise of Alexandria. Discovered submerged off the coast near Alexandria, the city's ruins provide a rare glimpse into the past, revealing a lot of details about its structure, culture, and the historical dynamics of the region. The city of Heraklion was established around the 12th century BC, situated at the canopic mouth of the Nile, near present-day Abu Qir Bay. It was an important cultural and commercial center, home to grand temples, including the significant sanctuary dedicated to the god Amun. Heraklion was not only a vital religious site, but also played a critical role in Egypt's economic activities, serving as an emporium for Mediterranean trade. Archaeological discoveries at Heraklion include a wealth of artifacts such as statues of gods and goddesses, gold coins, jewelry, and ceremonial objects, which underlie the city's wealth and its religious significance. One notable find is a large statue of the god Hapi, depicted as a personification of the Nile's fertility. The reasons behind Heraklion's decline are complex though, involving natural disasters and political shifts. Around the 2nd century BCE, as Alexandria began to flourish, Heraklion's importance waned. The city suffered from a series of natural catastrophes, including earthquakes and tsunamis, which, combined with the rising sea levels, eventually led to submersion into the Mediterranean. These events caused buildings to collapse and the city's infrastructure to fail, resulting in Heraklion being forgotten until its rediscovery by underwater archaeologist Frank Godio in 2000. Godio's team employed advanced underwater archaeology techniques such as sonar scans and deep-sea diving to excavate and map the city's remains. This extensive underwater exploration has revealed that much of the city's architecture and many artifacts have been remarkably preserved beneath the sea. The findings from Heraklion provide a lot of insights into ancient Egyptian civilization's trade practices, religious life, and urban planning. Upsweep. The upsweep is an underwater sound that has been continuously detected by the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration since the inception of its audio monitoring program in the Pacific Ocean. Characterized by its sharp, upward sweeping frequency modulations, the sound is most active during the spring and fall seasons, and its origin point has been traced to coordinates 54 degrees south, 140 degrees west in the Pacific Ocean. While the precise cause of upsweep remains unidentified, several hypotheses have been proposed. One possibility is that it represents a natural geophysical phenomenon, such as underwater volcanic activity or ice fracturing along the Antarctic ice shelf. The sound could also be generated by underwater currents or the interaction of these currents with the seabed. Another more speculative explanation links upsweep to unidentified aquatic cryptids, like the mythical creature referred to as the bloop. The bloop itself was another mysterious sound recorded in 1997 that was eventually attributed to ice calving in Antarctica. Similar cryptid-related explanations for upsweep, while popular imagination, lack scientific evidence and are generally considered to be on the fringe by the scientific community. 2003 Great White Incident. In a really interesting event off the coast of Australia, scientists encountered an aquatic mystery involving a great white shark that has been tagged for research. This 9-foot shark, equipped with a sophisticated tracking device, unexpectedly ceased transmission, leading to an extensive scientific investigation. The recorded data from the device revealed surviving circumstances surrounding the disappearance of the shark, suggesting that it had been consumed by a larger predator, an event rarely captured or understood in marine biology. The tracking device, commonly referred to as a black box in marine research, provided critical data such as location, depth, and temperature changes. Analysis of these data painted a dramatic sequence of events showing a sudden, sharp increase in depth followed by a significant rise in temperature. These unusual readings pointed to a shark entering the digestive system of a much larger animal, as the temperature recorded matched what would be expected inside another living creature's body. Further research and observation led scientists to hypothesize that the predator was a significantly larger great white shark, possibly around 60 feet long and weighing over 2 tons. This hypothesis was supported by the migratory patterns and physical data gathered from other great white sharks in the region, which matched the mysterious data points from the Lost Sharks tracker. The temperature and depth data suggested that the larger shark had the capability to dive and accelerate at rates consistent with those recorded during the shark's final recorded moments. The incident opened a window into the seldom seen behaviors of shark-on-shark predation, indicating that even apex predators like the great white sharks are not exempt from natural threats from their own species. Cannibalism among sharks is not uncommon, but witnessing such events, especially involving large individuals, provides a lot of insights into the behavior, territoriality, and survival strategies. The occurrence could be attributed to several reasons. Territorial disputes among great white sharks are known, and the areas rich in food resources can lead to fierce competition. Hunger is another straightforward explanation, as sharks are opportunistic feeders that may take advantage of any available food source, including members of their own species. However, the act of cannibalism could also be a strategic move, removing potential competition and asserting dominance within a specific territory. This incident was documented extensively in a documentary produced by the Australian Broadcasting Corporation titled The Search for the Ocean Super Predator. This documentary detailed the scientific efforts to track and study Australia's great white sharks and highlighted the challenges and surprising discoveries faced by marine biologists. Cuban Underwater Formation. The Cuban Underwater Formation is a mysterious site that was discovered in early 2001. This submerged site is thought to contain granite structural complexes that some interpret as remains of an ancient urban complex. Initial sonar images suggested symmetrical and geometric stone structures spread over an area of about 2 square kilometers, at depths ranging from 600 to 750 kilometers. The site was first identified by Paul Lynn Zalitsky and Paul Wainswig, marine engineers working with Advanced Digital Communications, a Canadian company collaborating on an exploration mission with the Cuban government. During subsequent visits to the site, remotely operated vehicles recorded images of what appeared to be pyramids and circular structures formed from massive, smooth blocks of stone resembling hewn granite. The remarkable formations led Zalitsky to speculate about the potential significance of the site as a once large urban center. Despite the intriguing initial findings though, the scientific community remains cautious about the interpretation of these structures. National Geographic's senior editor, John Etchave, and notable oceanographer Robert Ballard have expressed skepticism, noting that the depth and nature of the images make definitive conclusions challenging without further evidence. Ballard, who is known for his critical approach, highlighted the difficulty in verifying such findings without direct observation and warned of the tendency to see patterns where none may exist. Marine geologist Manuel Itillard emphasized the need for more thorough investigations and cautioned that the site's depth suggests it could be around 50,000 years old. This timeline challenges the conventional archaeological understanding of the region's history and the technological capabilities of its ancient cultures. The Silver Lake Serpent. The Silver Lake Serpent is a legendary aquatic cryptid said to inhabit Silver Lake in New York. Described as a dragon-like creature with a fin on its tail, the Silver Lake Serpent has been a subject of local lore and numerous sightings, and it's said to possess an elongated serpentine body covered in shimmering silver scales, which is thought to have inspired its name, although there is ambiguity since it also shares its name with the lake itself. The first documented encounter with the Silver Lake Serpent occurred on Friday the 13th in the year 1855. This event involved 4 men and 2 boys who were night fishing on Silver Lake, a serene setting that was about to be disrupted by the unexpected. As they enjoyed the tranquility at the lake, a large, unidentified object emerged just a few feet behind their boat. Mistaking it initially for a log, a common enough sight in a lake, the group was startled when the object shifted positions, displaying animate and seemingly aggressive behaviors. As the object approached them rapidly, hissing in a manner unlike any known aquatic creature, panic ensued among the fishermen. In a frantic attempt to escape, one of the fishermen tried to cut the boat's anchor loose, but in his haste, dropped the knife into the water. With no other choice, he manually pulled up the anchor while his companions rowed desperately towards shore. Just when they thought they were escaping, the creature then resurfaced at the stern of their boat, giving them a closer and undoubtedly terrifying view. They reached the shore in a state of shock, barely making it to safety of a nearby inn. Over the years, the Silver Lake Serpent has been described variously by witnesses. Some report seeing a creature with red, glowing eyes as large as dinner plates and a long neck. Others have described seeing a creature with a crown-like crest on its head or blue eyes, suggesting a majestic and ancient creature residing in the depths of the Silver Lake. Despite numerous sightings over the decades though, concrete evidence of the Silver Lake serpent's existence remains mysterious. Skeptics suggest that sightings could be attributed to misidentifications of common lake animals or even optical illusions caused by unusual lighting conditions on the water. However, these explanations have not really deterred some researchers and cryptozoologists who are still drawn by the mystery and possibility of discovering a new unknown creature. The Ghost of Stowe Lake. The legend of San Francisco's White Lady of Stowe Lake is basically a ghost story that centers around a young woman dressed in white who is said to haunt Stowe Lake in Golden Gate Park. According to popular tales, this apparition is the spirit of a woman who lost her life in a desperate search for a missing infant. The narrative typically begins with the woman taking a leisurely walk with her baby in a pram around Stowe Lake. At some point, distracted by a conversation with a friend, she loses sight of the pram. Upon realizing the baby is missing, she frantically searches the area and, in a state of despair, drowns in the lake. Since then, it's said that her spirit, known as the White Lady, is said to roam the lake's vicinity, often reported by onlookers to be searching for her child on foggy nights. The earliest documented mention of a ghost in Golden Gate Park dates back to a 1908 article in the San Francisco Chronicle. The story details an encounter involving Arthur Pigeon, who was driving to the park with a group of women when they claimed to have seen a ghostly figure in white blocking their path. This sighting contributed to the legend, although it didn't specifically mention the White Lady. And when we further dig into San Francisco's history, it actually reveals a broader context of tragedy associated with Golden State Park around the turn of the 20th century. Newspaper archives, such as the San Francisco Call, indicate that the park was a common sight for people taking their own life during the late 1800s and early 1900s. A particular report from 1900 lists numerous accounts within the park describing it as a place that attracted those troubled by personal despair. However, none of these accounts directly correlate with the story of the White Lady. In 1906, though, a peculiar incident was reported when two young girls claimed to have seen the body of a baby in Lloyd Lake, another body of water within Golden Gate Park. Despite a thorough police investigation, no evidence of a body was found. This event, while not really directly linked to the White Lady, also adds to the mystery of the area's history. Despite numerous sightings and the passing down of the legend through generations, no historical records or police reports confirm the existence or death of the woman described in the ghost story. Much like many urban legends, the tale of the White Lady of Stowe Lake appears to be more a blend of myth, sporadic eyewitness accounts, and the park's history of people taking their own life. Tier 5. The Lonergan Couple. Thomas Joseph Lonergan and Eileen Cassidy Lonergan, a married American couple, tragically disappeared on January 25, 1998 during a scuba diving trip in the Coral Sea off the northeast coast of Australia. This incident not only led to widespread media attention, but also brought a lot of changes in safety protocols for diving expeditions in the region. Tom, who was born on December 28, 1964, and Aileen, born on March 3, 1969, were both Louisiana natives and LSU graduates. Their adventure in Australia came after their service with the Peace Corps in Tulavu, continuing similar work in Fiji. On the fateful day, though, the couple joined a group scuba diving tour operated by the boat MV Outer Edge, diving at St. Crispin's Reef within the expansive Great Barrier Reef. Tragically though, the vessel left the site without them, and their absence went unnoticed until 2 days later when their belongings were found on board. A massive search operation then ensued, yet it only resulted in the recovery of some personal effects, but not the Lonergans themselves. The search brought to shore Eileen's wetsuit and pieces of diving equipment, which provided grim evidence of their fate. Analysis of these items indicated that they had been in the water since their disappearance, with tears likely caused by coral. Amid the tragedy, theories circulated about the Lonergans' disappearance. Some posited that they might have staged their disappearance, while others suggested a possible intention to end their lives, as hinted at in diary entries made public which spoke of existential fatigue. However, these theories were largely dismissed by family members and officials who criticized the selective release of dairy experts that seemed to support the more sensational theories. The subsequent legal proceedings focused on Jeffrey Ian Jack Nairn, the boat's skipper, who faced charges related to their deaths. But he was eventually acquitted, though his company still faced a lot of penalties for their role in negligence that led to their abandonment. But yeah, this incident spurred a reevaluation of safety practices within Queensland's dive industry. New regulations were implemented to ensure stricter adherence to headcount procedures and overall safety protocols aimed at preventing such tragedies in the future. Their story also inspired the 2003 film Open Water, which dramatizes the ordeal of a couple left behind by their dive group. While the film is set in the Caribbean and introduces fictional elements, it basically still captures the essential horror of being left to fend for oneself in the open ocean, a scenario that unfortunately mirrored the real-life events experienced by Tom and Aileen Lonergan. Sargasso Sea's carnivorous seaweed. The Sargasso Sea, which is in the Atlantic Ocean, is named for its abundance of sargassum seaweed and has interested mariners and scholars for centuries, mainly for its role in maritime lore and mysteries of the ocean. One of the most interesting tales associated with this area revolves around the concept of carnivorous seaweed, suggested to have been responsible for the mysterious disappearances of numerous ship crews in the 1800s. This legend suggests that the dense patches of seaweed were not merely navigational hazards, but active predators, capable of ensnaring and consuming sailors who fell into the waters. The seaweed in question, sargassum, forms extensive mats on the ocean surface. These mats are so expansive and dense that they can hinder the progress of ships. Historical accounts suggest that vessels could become entangled in the seaweed, making them immobile and vulnerable to the elements and potentially leading to the abandonment by their crews. A notable instance is the French merchant ship Rosalie in 1840, found adrift in the Sargasso Sea with its sails still set but devoid of crew. Despite these tales though, there isn't really scientific evidence to support the existence of man-eating seaweed. The perceived threats were likely misunderstandings of the natural challenges posed by navigating through these dense seaweed patches. The real danger may have been the immobilization of ships, which left them stranded in open water, making them easy targets for storms or causing them to be slowly abandoned due to lack of supplies or madness from isolation. Also, the Sargasso Sea's proximity to the Bermuda Triangle also adds another layer of mystery. This region, which is notorious for stories of disappearing ships and aircraft, overlaps geographically with parts of the Sargasso Sea. The infamous triangle's conditions, including unpredictable weather and oceanic currents, might also explain some of these disappearances historically attributed to other causes like carnivorous seaweed. Montauk Monster. The Montauk Monster refers to an unidentified animal carcass that washed ashore on a beach near Montauk, New York in July 2008. The discovery and subsequent photos of the carcass sparked a lot of media attention and theories about what it could have been. Reports first surfaced in a local newspaper article where Jenna Hewitt and 3 friends claimed to have found the creature on the beach on July 12th. The initial public reaction was mixed though, with speculation ranging from the creature being a sea turtle without shell to an elaborate hoax. The carcass, as photographed by Hewitt, showed a creature with features that were somewhat recognizable yet strangely distorted. The creature was first speculated to be everything from a turtle, a dog, or even a raccoon. The theories about its origin included it being a decomposed version of one of these animals, or even a possible experiment from the nearby Plum Island Animal Disease Center. William Wise from Stony Brook University's Living Marine Resources Institute, along with his colleague, initially suggested that the creature might be a hoax. They considered several possibilities, like it being a raccoon or a diseased dog or coyote, noting that the body was too decomposed to make a definitive identification without closer examination. The animal was then featured in a lot of media outlets, each adding to the lore around it. Some even speculated about its connection to the government animal testing facility on Plum Island, suggesting it might have been an escaped subject from the facility. This theory was also fueled by the proximity of the island to Montauk and the island's history with animal disease research. Paleozoologist Darren Naish conducted a detailed analysis of the photograph and concluded that the creature was most likely a raccoon based on its visible dentition and skull shape. He noted that the animal's appearance in the photo could also be attributed to decomposition and exposure to water, which might have caused hair loss and skin shrinkage, making the limbs appear disproportionately long. Stronsay Beast. The Stronsay Beast is a term used to describe the remains of a large, unidentified creature that washed ashore on the island of Stronsay in the Orkney Islands, Scotland, after a storm in September 1808.
The carcass was initially measured by a carpenter and 2 farmers and was reported to be about 55 feet long, excluding the tail, making it one of the largest unidentified carcasses recorded. However, later analysis by Sir Everett Home suggested that the creature was roughly 30 feet long, and he even proposed that it was a decayed basking shark. This beast was really unusual though, not because of its size, but also because of its physical characteristics. It was reported to have 3 pairs of appendages that resembled paws or wings, a feature which is not typical of any known aquatic or marine creature. The skin of the Stronsay beast was described as smooth as well when touched from head to tail, and rough in the opposite direction. This detail, along with bristled edges on its fins and line of bristles along its back that glowed when wet, added to the mystery. The creature's stomach contents were also described as red, although specific details about the composition were not documented. The initial identification by the Wienerian Society of Edinburgh named the creature Pontoppidan sea snake in honor of Eric Pontoppidan, who had written about sea serpents. Despite this, the scientific community was divided, with some agreeing with Sir Everett Holmes' assessment that it was a basking shark, based on the decayed state of the body, which could distort its original features. Casper octopus. One of the most interesting discoveries in recent years occurred on February 27, 2016, when an ROV called Deep Discoverer, operated by the NOAA, captured footage of a previously unknown species of octopus. This sighting took place at a staggering depth of over 2.5 miles beneath the ocean's surface near the Hawaiian archipelago. The octopus observed during the exploration displayed several unusual characteristics that distinguished it from known species. Basically, it lacked pigmented cells that allow many octopuses to change color, which was pretty mysterious. Its skin appeared slack and its body seemed less muscular than that of typical octopuses. Also, it only had 1 row of suckers on the underside of its arms instead of the 2 rows commonly found in other species. The pale, ghost-like appearance of the creature led to its nickname, the Casper octopus. Despite its distinct features and clear video evidence, the Casper octopus hasn't really been assigned a formal scientific name. This is because traditional taxonomic practices usually require a physical specimen to be collected and preserved as a holotype in a museum, which serves as a definite reference for the species. However, collecting a specimen from such extreme depths presents a really big challenge both ethically and logistically. The deep sea environment is incredibly fragile, and the act of removing even a single organism could have unforeseen impacts on the ecosystem, so there's still a lot to learn about this octopus. Coconut crabs ate Amelia Earhart. The mystery surrounding Amelia Earhart's disappearance in July 1937 continues to add to theories about her fate. One of the more unusual hypotheses, though, suggests that Earhart, along with their navigator friend Noonan, may have ended up on Nikomaroro Island, a remote atoll in the western Pacific Ocean, and that their remains were subsequently scattered by coconut crabs. This theory emerges from a combination of historical evidence and biological possibility. Basically, in 1940, a British expedition on the island discovered a partial skeleton along with other artifacts that could be linked to Earhart. The skeletal remains were few though, being only 13 bones were retrieved, and later analysis have been inconclusive, partly since the bones were lost after their initial examination in Fiji. Coconut crabs, which inhabit Nikomaroro, are known for their significant size and strength. They can grow up to a meter in leg span and have the capability to exert considerable force with their claws. These crabs are also opportunistic feeders, known to consume a variety of foods, including carrion. Given their scavenging habits, it's plausible that they could have dispersed human remains rapidly, leaving behind only scattered bones. The hypothesis that Earhart's remains were affected by coconut crabs was given a form of experimental support by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery. This group conducted experiments using pig carcasses to see how quickly coconut crabs might disperse remains. The results showed that a body could be stripped in just a few weeks, with crabs carrying bones back to their burrows, potentially explaining why so few remains were found. Despite these experiments, though, the theory still remains speculative. No definite physical evidence directly connects the found bones to Earhart, and extensive searches on Nikomaroro have not yielded conclusive results. Researchers, though, use dogs trained to detect human remains in an attempt to find more evidence, but these efforts haven't really definitely solved the mystery of Earhart's final resting place. St. Augustine Monster. The St. Augustine Monster, also known as the Florida Monster or the St. Augustine Giant Octopus, refers to a mysterious carcass that washed ashore near St. Augustine, Florida in 1896. This event is one of the earliest recorded instances of a globster, which is a term used to describe unidentified organic masses that wash up on shorelines. The initial discovery was made on November 30th, 1896 by two young boys, Herbert Coles and Dunham Corretter, who stumbled upon the massive carcass while biking along Anastasia Island. The creature was partially buried in the sand and was initially thought to be a beached whale, a notion not unusual given previous similar standings in the area. Dr. DeWitt Webb, a local physician and founder of the St. Augustine Historical Society and Institute of Science, was informed about the find and conducted the first examination on December 1st. Webb described the carcass as having a pale pink, almost white color with a silver sheen in sunlight. The visible part of the carcass measured about 18 feet in length and 7 feet in width, with an estimated weight of nearly 5 tons. Webb suggested that it might be the remains of a giant octopus based on what appeared to be the stumps of arms, an observation that would spark a lot of interest and debate within the scientific community. The remains attracted further attention when two local enthusiasts, Edward Van Horn and Ernest Hawa, photographed the carcass. These photos, however, were overexposed and not suitable for publication, leading to reliance on drawings for public dissemination. Prominent among these was a drawing by A.E. Verrill based on the photos, which was published in the American Naturalist in April 1897. The creature was depicted with what seemed like multiple arm stumps. Initial hypothesis by experts like Professor Addison Emery Verrill suggested that the creature could be an octopus, possibly a new species given the unprecedented scale implied by the remains. Verrill then named the species Octopus giganteus. This classification was based on the enormous dimensions of the carcass, which, if aligned with the typical proportions of known octopus species, would indicate a creature with arms extending 75 to 100 feet. However, over the years, scientific scrutiny intensified with advancements in biochemical and histological analysis. A pivotal study in 1995 utilized electron microscopy and biochemical techniques, leading researchers to conclude that the carcass was not that of a cephalopod, but rather a mass of collagenous matrix from whale blubber, likely from a sperm whale. This finding was consistent with other analysis that had gradually eroded the sensational claims of a gigantic octopus. Altamaha. The Altamaha, often referred to as Alti, is a cryptid reported to inhabit the waters of the Altamaha River in southern Georgia, USA. This creature has its origins rooted in the traditions of the local Tama Native American tribe long before British colonization. The Altamaha is typically described as having a body resembling that of a sturgeon, including a bony ridge along its top. Its physical characteristics are said to include front flippers similar to that of a seal, but unlike many aquatic animals, it reportedly lacks hind limbs. Instead, Alti is believed to swim with an undulating motion similar to those of a dolphin or a porpoise. It's often depicted with the snout of a crocodile, and the creature's skin is most commonly described as gray with a whitish-yellow underbelly, although some accounts also mention a greenish hue, suggesting a possible ability to camouflage itself in the river's verdant environments. Despite numerous sightings and tales though, no definite physical evidence of the Altamaha has been discovered, leading science and speculation to mix in. The creature's mysterious nature and the interesting descriptions given by witnesses have led to various theories about its existence. One such theory suggests that the Altamaha could be a relic population of a prehistoric marine creature, perhaps similar to mosasaurs. Another hypothesis suggests that the Altamaha could be an undiscovered species of freshwater seal adapted to the environment of the Altamaha River. Tier 6. Lake Lanier. Lake Lanier, which is located in the northern Georgia mountains, was created in the 1950s by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. Over the decades, more than 200 people have died in swimming and boating accidents on the lake, which some attribute to its supernatural aura. The lake was originally developed to provide power and water to Atlanta and surrounding counties. This required the government to purchase land from local families, which often been held for generations. As the waters rose in 1956, they then submerged communities, farms, and roads, raising visible traces of the local history, but not the memories of what lay beneath. Apart from the deaths and accidents associated with its recreational use, Lake Lanier has a darker narrative tied to the structures and elements left underwater during its creation. While most significant obstacles were removed or relocated, certain remnants like an old auto racing track and the foundations of small buildings remained submerged. Also, while marked graves were relocated, some unmarked graves might have not been identified at the time and were inadvertently submerged, adding to the lore of the mysterious lake being haunted. Phantom Islands. Phantom Islands are islands that were once believed to exist, often appearing on maps only to be proven non-existent as more accurate explorations were conducted. These islands are interesting because they reflect the limits of knowledge during the times they were believed to exist and often reveal more about the explorers and the cartographic errors of the time than about real geographical features. Elizabeth Island, for instance, was documented by Sir Francis Drake during his global circumnavigation from 1577 to 1580. It was supposedly located at 57 degrees south in the Strait of Magellan. Drake and his crew took shelter there from a storm, finding it rich in natural resources. The island was claimed for England and named after Queen Elizabeth I. However, no subsequent exploration succeeded in locating it again. Historian Felix Reisenberg suggested that Elizabeth Island might have disappeared because of volcanic activity, which is a common occurrence in that region, and could have also explained its sudden disappearance from maps. Thule is another such island and referenced in ancient and medieval literature as being located far to the north and described as a line where the sun never sets during the summer. The exact location of Thule has been a subject of debate though, with various locations proposed from the Shetland Islands to Norway. Ningen. In recent years, there's been some discussions in Japan about mysterious humanoid creatures reportedly living in the icy waters of Antarctica. These entities, which are known as Ningen, meaning human, have been seen by crew members on government-operated whale research ships. They're often described as being entirely white, measuring between 20 to 30 meters in length, and resembling humans with body parts like legs, arms, and hands. Some reports even mention fins or a mermaid-like tail instead of legs or even tentacles. The facial features are generally limited to the eyes and mouth though. The first accounts of the Ningen came from crew members who mistook what they saw in the distance for a foreign submarine. As they approached, it became apparent that the object was actually a living organism, which quickly submerged and disappeared from sight. This sparked curiosity and led to discussions online, mainly on forums like 2channel, and later in the November 2007 issue of MU magazine, which is a Japanese publication focused on paranormal phenomena. This magazine article included a Google Earth image purported to show a Ningen in the South Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Namibia. Despite these interesting accounts though, there's no concrete evidence to support the existence of Ningen. Photographic evidence is scarce and generally inconclusive, with the supposed Ningen often resembling blocks of ice in photos. Several theories have been proposed to explain the sightings of Ningen, ranging from misidentified known animals like whales, sharks, or squids to the possibility of a new species of giant manta ray, an aquatic sloth descendant, or even an undiscovered species of beluga. Some suggest that Ningen could also be an evolutionary relative of humans adapted to aquatic life, or even a completely new type of aquatic or semi-aquatic creature evolved from large carnivorous animals like leopards, seals, or killer whales. Untouchable bathysphere fish. The untouchable bathysphere fish, sometimes called bathysphere leadfish, due to their first and only sightings during the historic deep-sea explorations by William Beebe in 1932, remain a big puzzle in marine biology. These creatures were first observed off the coast of Bermuda and are thought to include several distinct species like the five-line constellation fish, pallid sailfin, abyssal rainbow gar, giant dragonfish, and the three-starred anglerfish. William Beebe, an American naturalist, ventured into the deep ocean inside a bathysphere, which is a spherical deep-sea submersal that was unpowered and relied on a ship above to supply oxygen and communications. During these dives, Beebe reported seeing various fish species previously unknown to science at incredible depths ranging from 1,500 to 3,000 feet below the ocean's surface. These sightings were then documented with detailed descriptions of each fish's physical characteristics and behaviors. For example, the five-line constellation fish, which is named for its pattern of bioluminescent markings, was described by Beebe as a discoidal fish with a large continuous vertical fin and a body covered with luminous lines. The pallid sailfin, on the other hand, was said to have a ghostly appearance and minimalistic fin structure. The abyssal rainbow gar, another species reported by Beebe, was said to have vibrant coloration that stood out in the deep-sea darkness. This species, however, was not assigned a scientific name, and the giant dragonfish was described as having a barracuda-like shape with bioluminescent features, which include a row of light organs along its body. Lastly, the three-starred anglerfish was distinguished by its angler-like appendages tipped with bioluminescent lures. Despite the detailed accounts provided by BB though, none of these species have been observed since, and physical evidence like specimens or photographs was never collected. Ghost Ship of Chaleur Bay. The Baie de Chaleur, known for its mysterious and haunting fire ship, also referred to as the Chaleur Phantom or the Phantom Ship, is part of local folklore and has a blend of natural phenomena. This ghostly ship is observed primarily in Bathurst, New Brunswick, Canada, and occasionally across the bay in New Carlisle, Quebec. Often appearing as an arc of light, especially before a storm, this phenomenon has puzzled and intrigued observers for years. Various theories have been proposed to explain its appearance, ranging from natural explanations like rotting vegetation and St. Elmo's fire, which is a weather phenomenon involving plasma created by the corona discharge from a rod-like object in a strong electrical field in the atmosphere, to more supernatural interpretations. Among the most popular tales associated with the ship is one involving a Portuguese captain who, during the second voyage to the region in 1501, was killed by local natives as retribution for his slaving activities. According to the legend, a year later, the captain's brother sought revenge but met the same fate, being that their ship caught fire and sank, leading to a curse that doomed the crew to haunt the bay for 1,000 years. Local folklore claims that the spectral ship appears frequently on hot summer nights, and the screams of passengers can be heard if one's feet are submerged in the waters of the Chaleur Bay. Another version of the legend involves pirates who, after murdering a woman, were cursed by her with their dying breath to burn on the bay forever. There's also a tale of a mutinous crew that murdered a fellow sailor, blaming him for their misfortunes at sea. The ship eventually caught fire, reinforcing the motif of fury retribution that pervades these legends. Investigations into this phenomenon have ranged from the scientific to the speculative. Dr. J. Orrin Green, a professor from Harvard Medical School, attributed the fire ship to natural electrical phenomenon. Professor William Francis Ganong, who personally visited the area, identified it as St. Elmo's fire, a finding he discussed in a 1906 paper. G.L. Ellis, a geologist, speculated that the fire ship might be due to marsh gas. Caluche. The Caluche is a central figure in Chilote mythology. This mythical ghost ship, known by various names like the Enchanted Ship and the Ghost Ship, is a blend of local lore and supernatural elements as well. The legend describes the Caluche as a great ship enveloped in music and lights, visible especially on foggy nights as it navigates through the canals of Chiloe. It's said that the ship can appear and disappear at will, and it has the ability to transform its shape to avoid being seen. According to local stories, the Caluche is not just an ordinary ship, but possesses extraordinary speed and that its crew can turn into sea animals like wolves or dolphins. The crew, which is known for the distinctive appearance, including cold hands and a leg attached directly to their spine, is said to engage in rescuing shipwreck survivors. Also, these sailors supposedly transport their recovered comrades to a mystical destination known as the City of the Caesars, a hidden place along the Andes where residents are believed to live forever. Various theories have been proposed though about the origins of this story. Some suggest it might be a reimagining of the European Flying Dutchman legend, while others believe it reflects historical events like the disappearance of specific Dutch or Spanish ships. There are also views that link to the tale of covert smuggling operations in the archipelago, or even to unusual maritime phenomena like unidentified submersible objects. The ship serves multiple roles in the legends though. In one version, it's a magical vessel created by the Milalobo to recover the bodies, which is a mythical sea creature, to recover the bodies of the dead from the sea, reviving them to join eternal celebrations aboard the ship. Another tale suggests the ship enslaves fishermen with its enchanting music, turning them into perpetual crew members cursed with the deformity similar to the mythical Imbunche. And there's also stories of the Caluche's crew engaging in mystical pacts with local leaders, promising prosperity in exchange for various favors, which has led to suspicions of sudden wealth among some inhabitants of Chiloe following major disasters like earthquakes. Orang Medan. The SS Orang Medan is shrouded in mystery and often regarded as a ghost ship tale from the Dutch East Indies, which is now Indonesia, in the late 1940s. The story of the Orang Medan involves the ship's entire crew, which reportedly died under mysterious and alarming circumstances. The tale has been passed down through various sources, with discrepancies in the dates and details. Some sources mention that the incident occurred in 1940, while others claim it was either 1947 or 1948. The legend was notably discussed in an article published by the Proceedings of the Merchant Marine Council by the US Coast Guard in 1952. An earlier mention in the Albany Times in 1948 cites Elsevier's Weekly as its source, introducing the story to a broader audience. The name Orang Medan could be translated from Malay or Indonesian as Man of Medan, with Medan being the largest city of the Indonesian island of Sumatra. Despite its frequent appearance in books though and articles focusing on maritime mysteries and the unexplained, the actual existence of the ship remains unverified. Efforts to locate registration records or accidental reports concerning the Orang Medan have been unsuccessful. According to the narrative though, the Orang Medan was found adrift by two American ships, the Silver Star and the City of Baltimore, among others in the Straits of Malacca. The crew of the Orang Medan allegedly sent out distress signals, which include a chilling message that all officers, including the captain, were dead. When the Silver Star boarded the vessel, they reportedly found the entire crew dead, with expressions of terror on their faces and no visible injuries. Shortly after the discovery though, a fire reportedly broke out on the ship, leading to its eventual explosion and sinking. Theories about the cause of death include the illegal transport of hazardous chemicals like potassium cyanide and nitroglycerin, which might have reacted with seawater entering the cargo hold, releasing toxic gases. Another theory suggests that the ship might have been carrying nerve gas, which the Japanese military had left in China during the war, and that it was being transported secretly to avoid documentation or detection. Lake Pepin Monster. The Pepe monster is a lesser-known cryptid reported to inhabit Lake Pepin, a naturally occurring lake on the Mississippi River on the border between Minnesota and Wisconsin. The creature, named after the lake itself, draws some comparisons to the Loch Ness Monster of Scotland. The legend of Pepe has historical roots in the narratives of the Native American mound builders, cultures that lived along the Mississippi from the Gulf of Mexico to its source in Minnesota. Chad Lewis, a Wisconsin native and an author known for his explorations into the paranormal and unexplained, delves deep into the Pepe phenomenon in his book titled Pepe, the Lake Monster of the Mississippi River. This book compiles historical accounts, modern sightings, and personal research. Lewis's interest in Pepe grew during his investigations of other mysterious occurrences around lakes and streams in his home state. And a significant element of the Pepe lore is the $50,000 reward offered in 2008 by businessman Larry Nielsen. This reward, which was aimed at proving Pepe's existence, was also intended to boost tourism in the Lake City area. Despite many attempts by enthusiasts and cryptid researchers, the reward remains unclaimed, indicating that conclusive proof of Pepe's existence continues to elude the public. The book also recounts various sightings and attempts to capture evidence of Pepe. One notable mention is from an 1876 article in the Anita Tribune, which described a sighting by two fishermen near Muscatine, Iowa. This sighting, like many others, was skeptically received, often attributed to misidentifications of natural phenomenon such as waves or submerged logs. Lewis and co-author Noel Voss undertook numerous expeditions along the Mississippi though, employing underwater cameras, sonar, and fishing equipment in their quest to document the elusive creature. Their adventures, which included using themselves as bait, are detailed in the book and provide a thorough narrative of their exhaustive search. Flannel Isle Mystery. The Flannel Isles Lighthouse, located on Eilean Moor within the Flannel Isles of the west coast of Scotland, is noted for its eerie disappearance of its keepers in 1900. The lighthouse, which was designed by David Allen Stevenson and built between 1895 and 1899, is set against the backdrop of rugged coastal scenery and often harsh weather conditions. The construction of the lighthouse was a formidable engineering challenge due to the remote location and the need to transport all materials via boats directly to the base of the steep cliffs. The lighthouse itself was a cylindrical tower made of masonry and stood at 23 meters high and was one of the many built by the Stevenson family. It was automated in 1971, marking the end of an era of manned operations. One of the most interesting aspects of the Flana Isle Lighthouse, though, is the mysterious disappearance of the 3 lighthouse keepers in December 1900. This incident has fueled a lot of theories over the years, ranging from rogue waves and personal disputes to supernatural explanations. The last record of the keepers, which were seasoned mariners accustomed to the loneliness and dangers of lighthouse life, came from a passing ship that noted the lighthouse was unlit during a storm. When the relief vessel Hesperus arrived at the island several days later, the crew found no sign of the keepers. The entrance gate was closed, beds unmade, and the clock stopped. More unsettling though, the west landing indicated considerable storm damage with railings bent over and a large rock dislodged. These physical evidences suggested a massive wave might have swept the men into the sea, a theory supported by the lighthouse log, which hinted at very severe weather conditions leading up to their last recorded day. The Northern Lighthouse Board conducted an official investigation led by Superintendent Robert Muirhead, who knew the men personally. The investigation concluded that it was likely that the keepers were swept away while attempting to secure equipment outside during a violent storm. Despite extensive searches though, no bodies were ever recovered, which has kept the story alive in public memory and popular culture. Soya Antarctic Godzilla. The large Antarctic sea mammal is a mysterious aquatic cryptid reportedly sighted by Japanese research ship, the Soya, in 1958. This sighting occurred in the icy waters of the Antarctic Ocean, specifically at Lotso Holm Bay. The captain of the Soya, inspired by the sheer size and formidable appearance of the creature, dubbed it the Antarctic Godzilla, likening it to the famous monster from Japanese pop culture. This name suggests the creature's significant size and even perhaps its impact it had on those who observed it. The specific sighting of this cryptid happened on February 13, 1958 at around 7 p.m. Despite the passage of time though, this sighting remains a solitary event, with no subsequent sightings to either substantiate or debunk the initial observation. Descriptive accounts of the creature suggest it bears a lot of resemblance to known marine animals, yet carries distinct features that set it apart. The elusive nature of this creature, combined with the harsh and inaccessible habitat of the Antarctic Ocean, complicates efforts to pursue further evidence or confirmation of its existence. 1999 Whistle Sound. The whistle is a mysterious underwater sound detected by hydrophone in the eastern Pacific Ocean. This mysterious sound was recorded on July 7, 1997 at 7:30 GMT by an autonomous hydrophone located at the coordinates 8 degrees north and 100 degrees west. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, which analyzed the recording, noted that the characteristics of the whistle bore a lot of similarities to sounds associated with volcanic activity, mainly those documented in the Mariana Volcanic Arc, a region known for its underwater volcanic activities. Their analysis suggested that the whistle could be volcanogenic, originating from underwater volcanic processes. The sound's distinct quality, which is reminiscent of those produced by volcanic phenomenon, implies a deep-sea volcanic origin. However, pinning down the precise source of such an underwater acoustic phenomenon presents a lot of challenges. For a more accurate localization of an underwater event, at least 3 recording stations are typically required to triangulate the source. In the case of the whistle, it was only picked up by the northwest hydrophone, indicating either its faintness or the distance it traveled from its origin. This limitation in recording means that while the sound could indeed have emanated from a remote underwater volcano, the exact location remains undetermined. Tier 7. Cosmic Ocean. The concept of a cosmic ocean is a common theme found across various myths and religious stories around the world. This idea represents a vast ocean that existed before the world was created. According to these stories, everything we know, including the Earth and the entire cosmos, came from this primordial ocean. It symbolizes chaos and disorder from which order and life eventually emerged. In many cultures, the creation of the world is described as an event where order is established from the chaos of these endless waters. For example, in ancient Egyptian myths, the god Ra is said to emerge from a lotus flower that appeared on the surface of these waters. In Greek mythology, the ocean god Oceanus is depicted as a great river that surrounds the earth and is the source of all life. Similar stories can also be found in Norse myths, where the giant Ymir was formed from the melting ice of the cosmic waters. Ocean at night. The ocean at night can be a pretty unsettling place, filled with unexpected and mysterious sounds that can chill even the most seasoned sailors to the bone. Here, we dive into a collection of stories that reveal the darker, more unnerving side of the sea when the sun goes down. For example, one sailor recounts an experience about 50 miles offshore on a sailboat. It said it was a completely dark night when suddenly a loud crack was heard, causing the boat to jolt slightly to the side. After a tense 20-minute silence, another loud thump followed by another shift of the boat occurred. The crew hurried back to the shore, and once the boat was in dry dock, they discovered a huge dent about 2 feet in diameter on the hull. The crew speculated that they might have collided with a sleeping whale. Another story comes from a crew member on a tanker in the middle of the Indian Ocean. During a night watch under clear skies and good visibility, he spotted what looked like a lighthouse light in the distance. It flashed rhythmically and was quite bright, yet when he checked the radar and navigational charts, there was no land or structure recorded within 400 miles. He continued to watch the light until it suddenly disappeared, which left him feeling quite uneasy. During a different voyage near the Philippines, the same sailor noticed a very faint light straight ahead in the distance. The radar showed nothing though, and initially he thought it was far away. However, something urged him to steer the ship to starboard. Just a minute after he changed course, they passed a small fishing boat by about 200 meters, which had only a weak torch for light. Had he not trusted his gut and changed course, they would have likely collided with the boat. Sea People Invasion. The story of the Sea Peoples is both interesting and mysterious, often leaving historians and archaeologists puzzled about their exact origins and the full extent of their impact on the ancient Mediterranean world. This group famously disrupted the established societies around the Mediterranean roughly around 1200 BC. Their sudden appearance in the historical records, their formidable military capabilities, and their equally mysterious disappearance contribute to the ongoing fascination with their tale. Historical accounts, mainly based on Egyptian records, portrayed the Sea Peoples as formidable aggressors who traveled by sea and over land, attacking and destabilizing many ancient civilizations. They're blamed for the collapse of the Hittite Empire, significant disruptions in Cyprus and the Levant, and contributing to the end of the Mycenaean and Minoan civilizations. This narrative comes from a few Egyptian inscriptions and is vividly depicted in scenes from temples like Medinet Habu, where Pharaoh Ramses III boasts of defeating them in a great battle. Despite their prominent role in these historical tales, the Sea Peoples remain difficult to pinpoint within the archaeological record. Their material culture, such as weapons, pottery, and other artifacts, don't distinctly set them apart from the established civilizations of the time. The primary sources of information about the Sea Peoples are texts from the regions of Egyptian pharaohs Meneptah and Ramses III. These texts describe formidable coalitions of the Sea Peoples advancing on Egypt, prompting extensive military preparations and battles that ultimately led to their defeat. The inscriptions detail how these tribes were repelled and depict them as a significant threat that required substantial military efforts to subdue. Identifying the specific tribes within the Sea Peoples group is pretty complex though. Egyptian records mention different names like the Denyen, Shekelesh, and Weshesh, among others. These names are primarily known through consonantal skeletons, as the Egyptian script did not record vowels. The impact of the Sea Peoples on the regions they invaded was undeniably disrupted though. Some scholars suggest that these upheavals marked the transition from the Bronze Age to the Iron Age in these areas, indicating a significant shift in the technological and cultural landscape. Black Demon. The Black Demon is a purported oceanic cryptid reported to inhabit the waters off Mexico's Baja California Peninsula. Described as a massive shark, much larger than typical species, it's said to reach lengths of 20 to 60 feet and weigh about 50 to 100,000 pounds. This cryptid is often likened to the prehistoric megalodon because of its size and aggressive nature, but is distinguished by its dark coloration and large tail. Reports primarily come from local fishermen, with the first sighting claimed to be in 2008. Despite various attempts to document or capture evidence of the Black Demon's existence, including an episode of the TV series Monster Quest, conclusive proof remains elusive. The rarity of sightings contributes to the scant information available, leading to speculation about whether it could be a megalodon, a new species of shark, or an abnormally large great white. Contorted squid. In a recent expedition in the Gulf of Mexico, researchers encountered a really extraordinary sight, being a squid contorting itself in a bizarre manner, thousands of feet below the ocean surface. This observation was made during an exploration mission conducted by the NOAA research vessel Okeanos Explorer, which utilized remotely operated vehicles to explore deep-sea habitats. The mission, which took place from April 11 to May 3rd, aimed to capture high-resolution video and map the geography of the ocean floor. The peculiar squid, thought to belong to the genus Discothetus, was seen at a depth of about 2,790 feet. Its body was curled inward dramatically, with arms folded and forelimbs extended stiffly, resembling a defensive pose, yet so extreme that barely looked like a squid. This unusual behavior and appearance puzzled even experienced marine biologists like Manvechion, who remarked on the squid's bizarre form. Giant cannibal shark. In 2013, researchers tagged a 9-foot gray shark off the coast of Australia as part of an ongoing study to understand shark behavior and migration patterns. This routine research took an unexpected turn though when 4 months later, the shark's tag washed up on a beach. The data retrieved from the tag revealed a dramatic sequence of events, being a sudden spike in temperature from 7.6 degrees Celsius to 25.5 degrees Celsius, accompanied by a sharp plunge of 1,902 feet in depth. This peculiar data suggested that the shark had been devoured by a much larger predator, likely entering the digestive system of this unknown creature. The intriguing incident caught the attention of the scientific community and inspired the documentary Hunt for the Super Predator, which was based on the earlier Australian documentary The Search for the Ocean Super Predator. This case exemplifies the mysterious and often unpredictable nature of marine environments, where even large predators like the great white shark can themselves fall prey to even larger creatures. The leading hypothesis from the scientists involved in this study suggested that the predator was a colossal cannibal great white shark. This giant shark was estimated to be about 16 feet long and weighed over 2 tons, capable of the speed and depth changes recorded on the lost shark's tag. Researchers proposed that the attack could have been driven by territorial disputes or competition for resources, which are common among shark species. These behaviors are part of the dynamics that govern marine ecosystems and reflect the harsh and competitive nature of the underwater food chain. Bimini Road. Bimini Road, which is an underwater rock formation found off the coast of Bimini Island in the Bahamas, has sparked a lot of debate and curiosity since its discovery in 1968. Stretching about a half a mile along the shallow waters of Bimini's western shore, this series of rectangular limestone blocks, which are neatly aligned in a linear fashion, raises a lot of questions about its origin and purpose. The discovery of Bimini Road was made by a team of underwater archaeologists, including Joseph Manson Valentine and Jacques Moyle, who stumbled upon these massive limestone blocks laid out in what appeared to be a deliberately constructed road. This has led to a lot of speculation that the formation could be a remnant of the legendary lost city of Atlantis, as described by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato. The layout and size of the blocks in Bimini Road have prompted some to believe they were crafted and positioned by human hands. Each block is estimated to weigh several tons, and the entire formation follows a precise north-south orientation. The absence of any tool marks or other evidence of human fabrication, though, have led others to argue that the formation might be entirely natural. Geological processes like weathering and erosion over thousands of years could potentially produce such formations, although the uniformity and arrangement of the blocks challenge this natural theory. To further explore these theories, several researchers have examined the geological composition and the environmental conditions surrounding the formation. They suggest that the limestone blocks could have naturally fractured and settled in their current position over millennia because of the movements within the Earth's crust, or possibly from repeated storm activity, which is common in the Bahamas. Yet, this explanation doesn't really satisfy all, as it doesn't account for the remarkably straight and organized layout of the blocks. Otsorobun. The Otsorobun, which translates to hollow boat, is an interesting story from Japanese folklore. This narrative dates back to early 19th century when an unusual vessel reportedly washed ashore in 1803 along the coast of the Hitachi province, which is now known as the Ibaraki prefecture. According to various historical texts, the Otsorobun was described as an object resembling a traditional incense burner, with a rounded bottom and a top that appeared to be constructed from lacquered wood. The craft was reported to be about 3.3 meters high and 5.45 meters wide, equipped with transparent windows that were secured with bars and sealed with resin that baffled those who found it. Inside this mysterious craft, local fishermen discovered a young woman estimated to be between 18 and 20 years old. Her physical appearance was strikingly unusual for the time and region, being she had red hair extended with white strands, pale pink skin, and wore garments made from materials unknown to the local populace. And she carried a small box that she guarded intensely, refusing to allow anyone to touch it. The contents of this box remain a subject of much speculation though, but were believed by some to hold something of great personal importance, perhaps linked to a tragic backstory involving love and exile. The text also mentioned that the interior of the Usurabun contained items like water, food, and textiles that didn't match the technology or design familiar to the Japanese of the era. The inscriptions inside the vessel were written in a script that no one could decipher, which added to the mystery of the already baffling situation. This event, as recorded in historical documents like the Hiroro Kishu and Toen Chisetsu, has been interpreted in various ways. Some scholars see it as a blend of folklore and exaggerated storytelling typical of the Edo period, meant to convey moral or cautionary tales of the unknown. Others, mainly in modern times, have speculated about more fantastical explanations, including theories of extraterrestrial visitations, comparing the story of the Utsurabun to modern accounts of UFOs. The Lost City Hydrothermal Vent Field. The Lost City Hydrothermal Field is an area under the sea where hot water comes out from the ocean floor. It's located on a big underwater mound called the Atlantis Massif, which is part of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge. This place is special because it's not like most underwater hot springs that are formed by volcanoes. Instead, it's formed by a reaction between seawater and a type of rock called ultramafic rock, which includes a mineral called olivine. Scientists found the lost city in the year 2000. They were basically using submarines and robots to explore deep under the ocean. Since then, many scientists have visited the place to study it because it's very unusual and can teach a lot about how the Earth works and maybe even how life started on our planet. The lost city is interesting to scientists for several reasons. First, the chemicals in the water there are different from most other underwater hot springs. The water is less acidic and has a lot of chemicals that can be used by microbes for energy. This makes the lost city a good place to study different kinds of tiny life forms that don't really need sunlight to live. The vents at the lost city also produce methane and hydrogen, which are important because scientists think that these gases might have helped the first forms of life to develop on Earth billions of years ago. This idea comes from the fact that the Earth's early oceans might have been similar to the water at the lost city, and studying this place could help scientists understand more about how life could start on other planets that have water, like some moons around Jupiter and Saturn. The area around these vents supports unique ecosystems too. There are different kinds of bacteria and other tiny organisms that use the chemicals from the vents to make food. This process is called chemosynthesis, and unlike most places in the ocean, the organisms here don't rely on sunlight to live, which is pretty interesting for studying life in extreme conditions. Mysteries of bioluminescence. Bioluminescence is an interesting natural phenomenon where living organisms produce light. This ability is found mainly in marine species, including fish, bacteria, and fungi, but not in higher animals like birds, reptiles, or mammals. The light is created through chemical reactions within the organisms. Some of these creatures, like certain types of plankton, can glow, which might surprise you if you've never seen the ocean sparkle at night. Deep in the cloud forests of Ecuador, glowing fungi on tree roots can light up the ground with a greenish glow, which can be incredibly helpful if you find yourself in the forest after dark, as Juliet Lamb, a researcher, describes from her experience. This natural light helped guide her back to safety when she was lost without a flashlight. Bioluminescence serves various purposes in nature. For many marine organisms, it's a way to communicate. Fireflies, which many of us are familiar with, use their glow as a way to attract mates. Some marine animals, like certain squid, use quick bursts of light to confuse predators, helping them to escape danger. Other creatures use bioluminescence for camouflage. Deep-sea animals can blend in with the faint light from above, making them less visible to predators from below. This type of light can also mimic the appearance of other animals, either to lure prey closer or to discourage predators. And humans have long been fascinated by bioluminescence and have tried to harness its power. Although we've used bioluminescent organisms like fireflies for practical purposes, like lighting up areas where open flames were dangerous, we haven't really developed this into a large-scale technology. Instead, modern science uses bioluminescence in research. Scientists attach glowing proteins to genes to track how they express in different situations, helping them understand complex biological processes. Tier 8. Hadal Zone. The Hadal Zone, or the deepest part of the ocean, begins at about 6,000 meters below the surface and extends all the way to the bottom of the ocean floor. This remote part of the ocean is both fascinating and mysterious because of its extreme conditions it hosts, including immense pressure, complete darkness, and near freezing temperatures. Among the well-known areas within the zone is the Mariana Trench, which features the Challenger Deep, which is the deepest known point on Earth at about 10,994 meters. Exploring these depths present a lot of challenge due to the harsh conditions, and a lot of what's there is pretty mysterious, but recent technological advances have allowed scientists to explore and study this area more effectively. The Hadal Zone is still largely unexplored though, and is thought to contain numerous species of marine life that have yet to be discovered. These species have adapted to survive the extreme pressure, darkness, and cold. Researchers continue to study the zone to learn more about the geology and oceanography that shape it and to understand how human activities affect these deep-sea environments. Historically, the Challenger Deep was first sounded by the HMS Challenger during the late 19th century, which is how it got its name. The area has been the focus of several key exploratory missions since then, including the historic 1960 dive by the Trieste Bathyscaphe piloted by Jacques Piccard and Don Welsh, which reached a depth of 10,916 meters. More recently, film director James Cameron made a solo journey to the Challenger Deep in 2012, and the Five Deeps expedition to 2019, led by Victor Vescovo, conducted comprehensive mapping of the deepest parts of the world's 5 oceans. The Treasure of the Merchant Royal. The tale of the Merchant Royal, also known as the Royal Merchant, is an interesting story that combines elements of history, mystery, and the lure of sunken treasure. Originally a merchant ship, the Merchant Royal sank off the coast of Cornwall, England in 1641. This ship was no ordinary vessel though, but was reportedly carrying a vast fortune estimated at 1.5 billion today, including 100,000 pounds of gold, 400 bars of Mexican silver, and nearly 500,000 pieces of A, among other coins. The sheer value and historical significance of its cargo have made the Merchant Royal a legendary figure in the world of treasure hunting. The story of the Merchant Royal begins with its unfortunate demise during a severe storm about 34 miles off the coast of Land's End, England on September 23, 1641. Despite the efforts of its crew, the ship was overwhelmed by the storm due to persistent leaks that plagued it throughout its voyage. The captain, known as Captain Limbre, and a portion of his crew were fortunate enough to escape, rescued by their accompanying vessel, the Dover Merchant. However, 18 of their fellow crewmen weren't as lucky and perished along the vast treasure. The legend of the Merchant Royal has not only endured but has grown over the centuries, fueled by the mystery of the lost riches. Numerous treasure hunters and exploratory missions have attempted to locate the wreck, driven by the hope of recovering the sunken wealth. One notable effort was made by the Odyssey Marine Exploratory Company, which has dedicated a lot of resources to this quest. Despite their efforts and the recovery of valuable treasures from other shipwrecks, the exact resting place of the Merchant Royal and its treasures still remains unknown. And adding to the mystery, in March 2019, an anchor believed to be that from the Merchant Royal was discovered by Cornish fishermen. The anchor, which matches the type used in the 17th century, was found tangled in fishing nets about 20 miles off Land's End. This discovery has rekindled interest in the Merchant Royal, prompting new speculations and renewed efforts to locate the elusive wreck. Eltanin Antenna. The Eltanin Antenna is an interesting ocean mystery that was captured on film by the USNS Eltanin, an Antarctic research vessel in 1964. Located deep beneath the ocean surface, the object was photographed at a staggering depth of 3,904 feet in the southern Pacific Ocean, which is west of Cape Horn. This image sparked a lot of theories and discussions because of its unusual appearance that resembles a man-made antenna. Initially, the structure's symmetrical and upright stance on the ocean floor led to widespread speculation and interest. Some enthusiasts of UFO and paranormal theories, including notable figures like Bruce Cathy, proposed that the object could be an extraterrestrial artifact. This theory was fueled by the object's antenna-like appearance, which seemed out of place in the natural environment of the deep sea. The vessel behind this discovery, the USNS Eltanin, was launched in 1957 and served as a cargo-carrying icebreaker before being converted into an oceanographic research ship in 1962. As the world's first dedicated Antarctic research vessel, the Eltanin played a crucial role in deep-sea exploration and studies during its operational years until 1975. On August 29, 1964, though, during one of its missions, the ship captured the now famous photograph of the mysterious object. The interest around the photograph grew after its publication in a 1964 New Zealand Herald article titled Puzzle Picture from Seabed. The discussion continued into the late 1960s with articles and stories proposing various origins and explanations for the object. However, the mystery was largely unraveled in 1971 when oceanographers Bruce C. Heezen and Charles D. Hollister identified the object as a species of carnivorous sponge. This identification was supported by descriptions and drawings from as early as 1888 by Alexander Agassiz, who documented similar sponges. Heezen and Hollister's explanation presented the sponge as having a long stem with nodules and appendages that resembled an antenna, thus solving the puzzle of the outstanding antenna. The cursed shipwreck. In the deep, mysterious waters of the Gulf of Mexico, a shipwreck has remained hidden for nearly 2 centuries, and was shrouded in mystery until a chance encounter with an ExxonMobil oil pipeline brought it back into spotlight. This discovery, which was made just 2 years ago, has interested marine archaeologists and history enthusiasts both, promising a glimpse into the maritime past of the early 1800s. The shipwreck, which is a 65-foot long wooden sailing vessel believed to date from the early 1800s, represents a unique opportunity for deep-sea archaeological exploration, being the first of its kind in the deep waters off the United States coast. The potential treasures and secrets it holds are now within reach thanks to modern undersea technology, including robotic submarines capable of diving thousands of feet below the surface. In 2003, the excitement was palpable as Texas A&M University's marine archaeologists teamed up with the Navy, which offered its nuclear research submarine for the exploration effort. Brett A. Fanoff, the lead scientist from Texas A&M, was optimistic about uncovering the ship's origins and story by the end of the summer. However, despite his enthusiasm and multiple expeditions, the shipwreck seemed almost reluctant to reveal its secrets, leading Fanoff to half-jokingly speak of a curse. The exploration faced a lot of setbacks and technical difficulties that seemed almost supernatural. From malfunctioning equipment to miscommunications and mechanical failures, each attempt to retrieve artifacts or even identify the ship's name was thwarted. The most promising find, though, a piece of the ship's copper sheathing, a feature dating back to when ships' hulls were sheathed in copper to protect against wood-eating marine organisms, was lost during an attempt to bring it to the surface due to a hydraulic failure. The copper sheathing itself was a critical clue, though. Introduced by the British Navy in the late 1700s and phased out by the mid-1800s, this expensive method was used on both warships and commercial vessels. The hand-nailed holes in the copper indicated a construction date around 1810, suggesting that the ship could have been a casualty of the War of 1812, possibly sunk during the Battle of New Orleans. The island of Bermuda. Bermuda Island, a mystery that has interested scholars and explorers for centuries, was once charted as an 80 square kilometer island off the coast of Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. It appeared on maps as early as the 1500s and was last noted in 1941. The name Bermuda comes from the Spanish word bermejo, meaning red, which describes the island's supposed reddish appearance. This detail was first documented in the 1539 World Atlas by cartographer Alonso de Santa Cruz. For years, Bermuda Island was consistently depicted in cartographic records. It was included in several significant maps, including a 1539 map by Santa Cruz and later in Henry Tanner's 1846 map, which labeled the island as part of the United States of Mexico. The existence of Bermuda Island has substantial implications for Mexico, though, especially concerning maritime rights and territorial claims. International law allows nations to claim an exclusive economic zone extending 200 nautical miles from their territory, and Bermuda's location would have significantly extended Mexico's zone into oil-rich areas of the Gulf. However, despite its potential importance, exploratory efforts in the late 20th and early 21st centuries failed to locate the island. Studies by the National Autonomous University of Mexico concluded that Bermuda Island never existed at the documented coordinates. The disappearance of Bermuda Island from both physical and cartographic records has spurred a lot of theories, though. Some suggest natural phenomenon like erosion could have submerged the island, while others propose different explanations like deliberate destruction due to conflicts over oil exploration rights. Aegean Sea ruins. Archaeologists have recently unearthed what is being called an underwater Pompeii in the Aegean Sea near the island of Delos, Greece. This find includes the ruins of an ancient pottery workshop complete with 16 terracotta pots and a kiln discovered at the bottom of the sea. This site has drawn comparisons to the famously preserved ruins of Pompeii because of its well-preserved state and the type of artifacts found. The site was initially thought to be the remains of port facilities, including a dock, and was pretty mysterious, but further exploration revealed it to be much more. The settlement, which thrived in the 1st century BC before being submerged, includes columns, large stone blocks from significant buildings, and the remnants of an oven. These findings suggest that the area was not just a simple port, but a community with structures and workshops similar to those found in Pompeii. The significance of this discovery extends beyond the artifacts themselves though. Delos, according to Greek mythology, is considered the birthplace of Apollo and has a rich history dating back to the 3rd millennium BC. At its peak from the 8th century BC until the 1st century BC, Delos was a major cultural and religious hub. The Romans later transformed it to a bustling port, but it was eventually abandoned, leaving behind mysteries lost beneath the sea until now. Gulf of Khambat ruins. The discovery of an underwater city off the coast of western India in the Gulf of Khambat, previously known as the Gulf of Cambay, has sparked a significant reevaluation of the timeline and development of early human civilizations. The find, made by the National Institute of Ocean Technology in December 2000 during routine pollution surveys using sonar technology, revealed massive geometrical structures lying 36 meters below sea level. The site covers an extensive area and stretches over 5 miles long and 2 miles wide. Upon its discovery, artifacts like pottery, beads, sculptures, sections of walls, human bones, and teeth were retrieved. Carbon dating conducted on these items suggested they were nearly 9,500 years old, a timeline that predates the well-documented Bronze Age Indus Valley civilization, traditionally considered one of the earliest urban cultures alongside Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. This revelation was first announced in May 2001 by India's then Science and Technology Minister, Murli Manohar Joshi, highlighting the potential rewriting of human historical progression. The controversy surrounding the Gulf of Khambat cultural complex, though, centers on the dating and archaeological interpretations of the findings. Badrinarayan, the chief geologist of NARAD's scientific team at the time, argued that the structures and artifacts represented remnants of a civilization that existed at the end of the last ice age and were subsequently submerged by rising sea levels. This theory aligns with certain flood myths recorded in ancient religious texts and suggests a sophisticated civilization existed well before the traditionally recognized development of complex societies around 5,500 years before the present day. Despite these claims though, the archaeological community remains divided. Some experts are skeptical of the findings and question the reliability of the dating techniques used, mainly the significance of a single piece of wood carbon dated to 9,500 years ago. Critics though, like Akso Parpola of the University of Helsinki, have raised concerns regarding the implications of this single piece of evidence on the overall dating of the site. Also, the dynamic underwater environment of the Gulf of Khambat, characterized by strong currents and shifting sands, complicates the archaeological process, potentially displacing artifacts from their original context. The implications of the findings are profound, suggesting that our understanding of ancient human history and the development of early civilizations may be incomplete. Prominent figures like Graham Hancock have argued that such discoveries indicate the existence of advanced prehistoric urban centers that are yet to be fully understood or acknowledged by mainstream archaeology. Narwhal tusks. Recent aerial drone footage from a narwhal research camp in Tremblay Sound, Nunavut, has provided really cool insights into the mysterious behavior of narwhals, mainly regarding the function of their tusks. Narwhals, which are often dubbed the unicorns of the sea, which are actually elongated canine teeth extending up to 9 feet from their heads. This feature is predominantly found in males though a small percentage of females also exhibit tusks. The footage, captured by drones operated by documentary filmer Adam Revich and Fisheries and Oceans Canada, reveals narwhals utilizing their tusks to perform quick taps to stun Arctic cod, which is their prey. This behavior immobilizes the fish and makes them easier for the narwhals to consume. This observation is also crucial since it demystifies the purpose of the narwhal tusks, but also demonstrates the narwhals actively feed in their summer habitats. And the significance of this discovery extends beyond the biological curiosity of narwhal tusks, being that it plays a critical role in conservation efforts. Understanding where and how narwhals feed is essential for identifying critical habitats that need protection, especially as the areas come under increasing threat from industrial development. This knowledge is also vital for designing effective conservation strategies to ensure the survival of narwhal populations in the rapidly changing Arctic environment. Despite these advances, though, much about the narwhals still remains a mystery. Their remote and inaccessible Arctic habitat has limited scientific research, making every new piece of information valuable. The evolution of the narwhal tusk, while still not fully understood, is believed to serve multiple purposes beyond just hunting. Some theories propose that the tusk is used as an ice pick, a tool for echolocation, or as a secondary sexual trait used during mate selection. Recent studies have highlighted that the narwhal tusk is highly sensitive, containing thousands of nerve endings that may allow the narwhals to detect changes in their environment, aiding in navigation and hunting. These findings suggest that the tusk is a multifunctional organ that provides a lot of evolutionary advantages to narwhals. The Rain of Lancaster Sound, which is a nutrient-rich area of Canada, hosts over 80,000 narwhal each summer, accounting for 3/4 of the world's population. The continuation of research efforts in this area is supported by collaborations between Fisheries and Oceans Canada, WWF Canada, and the Vancouver Aquarium, and even local hunting and trapping organizations. These studies aim not only to track narwhal movements and behaviors, but also to identify crucial calf rearing habitats, which are essential for the species' reproduction and survival. Jupiter blocks. In December 2012, Tracy Williams made an interesting discovery on a beach in Cornwall, England, that sparked a lot of investigation into the origins and history of mysterious rubber blocks bearing the word Jupiter. Her initial find of a single block during a casual stroll was soon followed by another, prompting her to delve deeper into their origins. Her research revealed that Jupiter referred to a village in Indonesia and a historical gutta percha plantation there, known for producing a rubber-like substance from tree sap used extensively in the 19th century for various industrial practices, including insulating underwater telegraph cables. Gutta percha was highly valued during the 19th century, especially in the field of telegraphic communication, which required durable and reliable insulation for underwater cables. The substance's versatility also extended to other uses, like in the manufacture of hot air balloons and fire hoses. As more blocks similar to those Tracy found washed up along the shores of the British Isles and other parts of Europe, including France, Denmark, and Spain, the mystery only deepened. This led to formation of a dedicated community on social media platforms where enthusiasts and experts alike shared findings and theories regarding the blocks' origins. The breakthrough in identifying the source of the Jupiter blocks came from various clues provided by knowledgeable sources. The sinking of the Japanese passenger ship Miyazaki Maru by a German submarine in 1917 during its voyage to London was identified as a significant event likely responsible for the dispersal of these blocks. It was theorized that the ship carried a substantial quantity of gutta percha planks, and their release into the ocean during salvage operations could explain the sudden appearance of these blocks on European shores. The British government's receiver of wreck, also referred to as the coroner of the seas, also supported this theory, suggesting that the ship's known cargo and drift patterns aligned well with the geographical distribution of the blocks found ashore. Despite the plausible explanation linking the blocks to the Miyazaki Maru, though, many questions remain unanswered. The crew of the Sarah Joe. On February 11, 1979, an ordinary fishing trip turned into a decades-long mystery. 5 men, Peter Hanchett, Benjamin Kalama, Ralph Malakini, Scott Moorman, and Patrick Wasner, departed from Hana, Hawaii in a 17-foot Boston whaler named the Sarah Joe. All seasoned seafarers with deep roots in the community, the group planned a day out on the water that tragically ended in their mysterious disappearance. The day began with clear skies and calm seas, but by early afternoon, a sudden storm had swept in from the mountains, prompting concern among the fishermen's families and friends. John Hanchett Sr., who was Peter's father, was among the first to respond, attempting to locate the Sarah Joe from the shore and then braving the storm himself in a desperate search that ultimately proved fruitless. The Coast Guard and local volunteers extended the search over the following days, covering 73,000 miles of ocean, yet no trace of the men or their boat was ever found. The Sarah Joe's disappearance lingered in the collective memory of the Hana community, unresolved and haunting. It wasn't until nearly a decade later, on 1988, that a startling discovery reignited the case. John Naughton, a marine biologist on a wildlife expedition, stumbled upon the wreckage of the Sarah Joe on the remote atoll of Tanogi, over 2,000 miles from where the men had set sail. Nearby, a makeshift grave marked with a simple wooden cross contained human remains and a mysterious arrangement of papers interleaved with tin foil, later identified through dental records as belonging to Scott Moorman. This find raised more questions than answered, though. The presence of the Sarah Joe on Tanogi, an uninhabited atoll, suggests that the boat had drifted across the Pacific, a journey that experts estimated could take about 3 months under the prevailing ocean currents. However, a US government survey conducted in 1985 had no sign of the boat, complicating theories about how and when the Sarah Joe had arrived at Tanogi. Speculation abounded regarding the circumstances surrounding Scott Moorman's burial. The inclusion of foil-lined papers in the grave pointed to a possible ritualistic element, perhaps an improvised version of East Asian burial practices, which led some to theorize that passing fishermen, possibly operating illegally in the area, had found Moorman's body and buried it. Private investigator Steve Goodenow led a subsequent expedition to Tanogi, which unearthed additional bones near the original gravesite and located the boat's engines embedded in the coral reef. These findings lend credence to the theory that the Sarah Joe had not simply drifted to Tanogi but had navigated there, possibly by survivors of the storm or by others who had come across the vessel. Tier 9. Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hernas. In November 1999, the mysterious disappearance of French sailors Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hernas off the coast of Annapolis, Maryland, sparked a complex investigation that mixed with maritime mystery. Yves Emmanuel, aged 37, and his younger companion Laurent, aged 24, were seasoned sailors tasked with delivering a high-tech French-made Antigua catamaran to new owners in Guadeloupe, West Indies. Their planned route from Annapolis was to navigate down to Chesapeake Bay, around Cape Hatteras, and then sail parallel to the US East Coast to their final destination. The Antigua, valued at $200,000, was equipped with cutting-edge navigational equipment, making it a virtually unsinkable vessel that also had the potential to elude radar detection. This feature raised some concerns that the catamaran could be exploited for illicit activities like drug or weapons trafficking. When the sailors failed to arrive in Guadeloupe as scheduled, a comprehensive search led by the Coast Guard ensued, covering vast expanses of their proposed maritime route, but to no avail. The case took a different turn when the boat was repeatedly sighted off course in the Intercoastal Waterway, which was an inland route stretching from New England to Florida, raising suspicions about the vessel's deviation from its intended path. These sightings included the presence of an unidentified third man, not part of the original crew. Further mystery was added by an incident in December 1999 when 2 French sailors were reportedly stopped by police in a car in Goose Creek, South Carolina, under circumstances that suggested they might be under duress, possibly held against their will by an unseen third party. This led to various theories about their fate, including possible hijacking by someone unfamiliar with sailing who might have retained the sailors to navigate the vessel. The discovery of the sailors so far from their expected location, along with the mysterious third man, fueled speculation ranging from a planned disappearance to abduction or coercion. Relatives and friends of the sailors, mainly Yves Emmanuel's cousin, Jean-Michel Payne, along with Coast Guard investigators, continued to seek answers, considering even the remote possibility that they had unintentionally sailed into Cuban waters and were detained. As of today, the disappearance of Yves Emmanuel Payne and Laurent Hernas still remains unsolved, with no conclusive evidence to clarify whether their journey was disrupted by criminal activities, a covert escape, or an unfortunate encounter with international complications. The Casey Nicole. On April 12, 1990, a maritime mystery unfolded when 4 commercial fishermen vanished in the Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Richmond Hill, Georgia. The crew consisted of Captain Billy Joe Neesmith, his brother Nathan Neesmith, their nephew Keith Wilkes, and their friend Franklin Brantley. They embarked on what was supposed to be a routine 7-day fishing expedition aboard the Casey Nicole, a snapper boat that had just undergone 5 weeks of maintenance. The trip took a disastrous turn though in the early hours of April 13th. Nathan, who took over the helm around 2:30 a.m., noticed that the boat was handling poorly and seemed to be sitting unusually low in the water. Upon investigation, the crew discovered about a foot of water in the engine room and, more alarmingly, near the sleeping quarters. Despite their efforts to bail out the water and call for help using the radio, their situation worsened, being that the engine stalled and all electric power was then lost. With the Casey Nicole rapidly sinking, the men were forced to abandon ship. They boarded a two-man life raft, which was also in poor condition, and a hatch cover they found floating nearby. Nathan made a desperate decision to swim back to the sinking vessel in hopes of finding something that could aid in their survival. He spent a grueling night clinging to the boat's hull, but by dawn, he saw a freighter pass by without noticing him. The freighter's strange behavior, stopping and starting without any apparent reason, later led to speculation that it might have picked up the other three men. Nathan was then rescued on April 15th, 20 miles off the Georgia coast, after enduring 4 days adrift with no food or water. The Coast Guard search for the rest of the crew turned up some debris, but no sign of Keith Wilkes, Franklin Brantley, or Billy Joe Neesmith. The mystery deepened though with eerie phone calls received months later by family members, in which a mysterious caller, speaking mostly Spanish, hinted that the missing men were still alive and would be brought home. The content of these calls, along with the setting of the freighter near the crew's last known location, led to rampant speculation. Theories range from the crew being kidnapped and forced into smuggling activities to being detained by a foreign vessel, possibly under distress or duress. These phone calls ceased abruptly though, leaving the families with more questions than answers and a fading hope that their loved ones might still return. Decades later, the disappearance of the crew of the Casey Nicole remains a haunting and unsolved mystery. Theories continue to circulate, fueled by the strange circumstances of their disappearance and the cryptic phone calls that suggested they might have survived the ordeal at sea. Ishinomaki Ghost. The Ishinomaki ghost case, as documented on the Unsolved Mysteries Wiki, centers around a series of eerie phenomena reported in Ishinomaki, Japan, following the devastating Tohoku earthquake and tsunami on March 11, 2011. Ishinomaki, a city in the Miyagi Prefecture, was one of the areas hardest hit by this natural disaster, which claimed nearly 20,000 lives and led to widespread destruction. After the tsunami, residents of Ishinomaki and other affected areas began reporting numerous ghost ships and supernatural occurrences. These reports range from visions of ghostly apparitions wandering through the wreckage to stories of spectral figures seen in areas where entire communities had been washed away. The scale of the disaster, along with the sudden and tragic loss of life, seemed to have left a deep psychological and spiritual impact on the area. Journalist Shuji Okono, who arrived in Ishinomaki 3 months after the disaster, noted that the community was deeply affected by these sightings. He compiled these stories in his book Stay Near Me, which recounts personal accounts of encounters with the supernatural. These stories were not just limited to nighttime apparitions, but some residents reported ghostly figures during the day, spectral visitors in their homes, and even phantom passengers in taxis who would disappear before reaching their destinations. Local spiritual and religious figures like Reverend Taiyo Kaneta have been involved in addressing the spiritual aftermath of the disaster. Reverend Kaneta, a Buddhist monk, has conducted numerous funeral services and spiritual cleansing ceremonies to help both the living and the dead find peace. He suggests that in Japanese culture, the barrier between the living and the dead is thin, similar to a shoji screen, allowing for a permeable boundary where spirits can linger if they have unfinished business or are taken away suddenly and tragically, as was the case in the tsunami. The phenomenon of tsunami spirits also has been explored by a British reporter, Richard Lloyd Parry, in his book Ghost of the Tsunami. Parry's investigations revealed that many locals genuinely believed in the spirits' presence, viewing them not as mere folklore but as real entities that interact with the living. This widespread acceptance and the sheer volume of reported sightings suggest a collective trauma and a shared attempt to come to terms with the catastrophic loss. 52 Hertz Whale. The 52 Hertz whale, often referred to as the world's loneliest whale, has interested scientists and the public with its unique call, which resonates at a frequency of 52 Hertz. This frequency is distinctively higher than the typical calls of most whale species, which generally range from 15 to 25 Hertz. The whale's calls were first detected by the Woods Oceanographic Institution and the Bioacoustics Research Program, with the researchers like William Watkins and John Hildebrand playing pivotal roles in studying these unusual vocalizations. Despite the distinctive call though, the 52 Hz whale doesn't match the acoustic signatures of any known whale species, leading to speculation about a species and origins. Its call has been recorded in various locations across the North Pacific, suggesting that the whale is capable of traveling extensive distances. The whale story was also subject to documentary The Loneliest Whale: The Search for 52, which explores the efforts to understand and locate this mysterious creature. Beyond its cultural impact though, the story of the 52 Hz whale has raised some questions about environmental concerns. Noise pollution, mainly from naval operations from industrial activities, has been shown to interfere with whale communication and migration patterns. The SOSUS network, originally established during the Cold War to monitor Soviet submarines, has been repurposed to study marine life, but also exemplifies how human technologies can inadvertently impact these creatures. Climate change is another critical factor affecting whale populations, altering oceanic conditions and impacting the ecosystems that whales depend on for survival. The breakup of ice in polar regions and rising ocean temperatures are reshaping the habitats of many marine species, making it increasingly difficult for them to thrive. Edward McCleary and his sea monster. The tale of Edwin Brian McCleary and his encounter with what he described as a sea monster remained one of the most interesting and debated stories within maritime mysteries. On March 24, 1962, McCleary, who was then 16 years old, along with friends Eric Gruel, Bradford Rice, Warren Felly, and Larry Bill, embarked on a skin diving adventure off the coast of Pensacola, Florida. Their destination was the sunken USS Massachusetts, located on a sandbar about 2 miles offshore from the Fort Pickens State Park. The journey began under seemingly safe conditions, but as they paddled out on their 7-foot Air Force life raft, the weather abruptly shifted. The group found themselves battling against increasing winds and a rising sea as the storm rapidly approached. Despite their attempts to signal for help and to anchor the raft to a nearby buoy, the worsening weather and powerful riptides thwarted their efforts. As the situation grew dire, McCleary reported a bizarre and terrifying encounter. Amidst the storm, he claimed to have seen a massive, pole-like figure with a bulbous top that dove underwater after briefly appearing above the surface. This sighting coincided with a foul odor and a sudden warmth in the water. Panic ensued then, and in the chaos, McCleary and his friends attempted to swim to safety. Tragically though, only McCleary survived, and his friends, it's said, disappeared, presumably drowned, with only one body later recovered. McCleary's account was later detailed in a 1965 issue of Fate magazine, where he described the creature as having a long neck and small eyes, similar to the descriptions of the plesiosaur. This encounter led to various theories, including the possibility of misidentifying a known animal like a whale or even an oarfish, which are known for their elongated bodies and can sometimes appear serpentine in the water. The conditions on that day, including the sudden storm, the cold water, and the exhaustion and fear experienced by them, could have contributed to sensory distortions or hallucinations. The psychological impact of such a traumatic event, along with the physical toll of fighting against the sea, might have led McCleary to perceive a natural phenomenon as something more sinister. HMS Affray. HMS Affray was a British Amphion-class submarine, notable for being the last Royal Navy submarine to be lost at sea. Commissioned shortly after World War II on November 25, 1945, HMS Affray was constructed by Cammell Laird in Birkenhead and was part of the final advancements in submarine technology influenced by the urgent demands of wartime development. This class of submarines was initially designed for operations in the Pacific against Japan, but Affray never saw combat in World War II. Affray had a displacement of 1,385 tons when surfaced and 1,620 tons when submerged. Her length stretched to 281 feet 9 inches with a beam of 22 feet 6 inches and a draw of 17 feet. Her propulsion system was also diesel-electric, providing 4,300 horsepower when surfaced and 1,250 horsepower submerged, allowing her to reach speeds of 18.5 knots surfaced and 8 knots submerged. Affray was initially assigned to the 3rd Submarine Flotilla and later participated in global operations, reflecting her strategic importance in the early Cold War context. She underwent modifications in 1949, including the installation of a snore mast, enhancing her ability to operate submerged for prolonged periods by drawing air at periscope depth. The submarine's fate turned grim though on April 16, 1951, dubbed Exercise Spring Train. This exercise was designed to simulate war conditions and included dropping off Marines along the English coast. On this fatal voyage, though, a fray carried a total of 75 personnel, including regular crew members and trainee officers. After a last surface check-in at 2,100 hours, she was scheduled to dive and proceed with the mission. However, she never surfaced, sparking a massive search effort involving multiple ships and submarines from various nations. Despite extensive efforts, the initial search yielded no results and was up to mystery. It wasn't until June 14, 1951, nearly 2 months later, that HMS Loch Inch identified a sonar contact in the English Channel near Hurd's Deep. This location was confirmed with the use of an underwater camera, which notably captured an image showing the letters Jafra, or Afray, spelled backward. The official inquiry suggested that a malfunction of the sonar mast, which had broken off, was likely cause of the disaster. Other theories proposed including a battery explosion due to the angle of the submarine on the seabed. However, some experts argued against these conclusions, suggesting that other mechanical failures or operational efforts during the exercise might have led to the submarine's rapid sinking. MV Joyita. The MV Joyita, originally built as a luxury yacht in 1931 by Wilmington Boat Works in Los Angeles for movie director Roland West, has a mysterious and tragic history. Over the years, Joyita transitioned from a private yacht to a merchant vessel and underwent numerous ownership changes. Initially designed for luxury, Joyita was a 69-foot wooden vessel renowned for its aesthetic appeal and comfort. In 1936, the yacht was sold to Milton E. Beacon and became a familiar sight along the Californian coast and at events like the 1939 to 1940 Golden Gate International Exposition. Its sturdy build included a hull made of 2-inch thick cedar on oak frames, designed to ensure durability and safety. The transformation of Joyita's role came with the onset of World War II, when in October 1941, it was requisitioned by the United States Navy and repurposed as a yacht patrol boat designated YP-108. During its service, Joyita patrolled the waters around the Big Island of Hawaii. It sustained significant damage when it ran aground in 1943, but due to the pressing needs of the war, it was quickly repaired. The Navy, after stripping it of most of its equipment, sold the vessel in 1948. The Joyita then underwent modifications that included adding cork lining to its hull and refrigeration equipment, increasing its buoyancy and making it nearly unsinkable. It changed hands multiple times though during the 1950s, being used for various commercial purposes, including trading and fishing charters. The most notorious chapter in Joyita's history began on October 3, 1955, when it embarked on a routine voyage from the Samoa to the Tokelau Islands with 25 passengers and crew aboard. Scheduled to take about 48 hours, the journey turned disastrous though. The ship was reported overdue on October 6th, and despite extensive search efforts covering nearly 100,000 square miles, no trace of the Joyita or its occupants was found for weeks. On November 10, 1955, the merchant ship Tuvalu spotted Joyita more than 600 miles off its intended course, drifting and partially submerged. The ship was in disarray, listing heavily with damaged superstructure and missing life rafts. Notably, the radio was set to the International Marine Distress Frequency, but faulty wiring limited its range to only about 2 miles, severely hampering any distress signal. Inside, the scene was grim, being that personal belongings were scattered, essential navigational tools missing, and signs of a hurried abandonment evident. An investigation into the disappearance revealed more about the vessel's condition than the fate of its passengers and the crew. The bilge pumps were clogged, the engines partly disassembled, and an auxiliary pump, which is crucial for emergency situations, was left unconnected. These findings painted a picture of a poorly maintained ship ill-prepared for emergency situations. Speculations about the crew's fate ranged from theories of mutiny and piracy to attacks by foreign submarines, since there was a tense geopolitical climate of the Cold War era. Some even suggested supernatural explanations, given the eerie circumstances of the abandonment. However, the most likely scenario suggested that a mechanical failure, along with the ship's poor condition, led to water ingress that, once begun, was impossible to control. Panic among the passengers and crew, possibly exacerbated by the ship's severe listing and the nighttime conditions, might have led to a rushed evacuation. SS Naronic. The SS Naronic, a British cargo steamship, is one of the most mysterious aquatic mysteries from the late 19th century. Built by Harland and Wolff in Belfast, Ireland for the White Star Line, Noronic was launched on May 26, 1892 and completed by July 11th of the same year. She embarked on her maiden voyage just 4 days later, setting sail from Liverpool to New York. Designed primarily as a cargo liner, Noronic was also equipped to transport live cattle across the North Atlantic. Noronic was the ship of HMS Bolvik as well, and at the time of her entry into service was celebrated as the largest cargo ship in operation. Her design included advanced features for animal welfare, such as spacious facilities, freshwater supplies, and enhanced ventilation systems, ensuring that the cattle were transported under the best conditions possible to avoid financial losses from animal casualties during voyages. Tragically though, less than a year into service, Noronic vanished without a trace in February 1893 while on a routine voyage from Liverpool to New York. She left Liverpool on February 11, 1893 with a crew of 60 and several passengers under the command of Captain William Roberts. After a brief stop at Point Lennes to embark the pilot, the ship headed into the open sea and was never seen again. The disappearance occurred in an era before the advent of wireless communication, leaving the ship completely cut off from the rest of the world in the event of emergency. The loss of the Noronic prompted a significant and prolonged search effort, yet no conclusive evidence was found regarding her fate. And the mystery deepened with the discovery of 2 lifeboats from the Noronic adrift and empty, suggesting that the crew had attempted to abandon the ship. Various theories have been proposed over the years regarding the ship's disappearance, ranging from collision with an iceberg to an onboard explosion caused by chemical cargo, yet none have been definitely proved. The official inquiry into Noronic's disappearance concluded without a clear understanding of the events leading to the ship's loss, citing only speculation about the possible causes. This outcome only fueled public fascination and speculation about what might have happened to the seemingly unsinkable vessel. The White Star Line eventually replaced Noronic with newer vessels, continuing their business despite the mysterious loss. The mystery of the fishing boat Fausto. The mystery of the fishing boat Fausto is an interesting tale from the Canary Islands, specifically La Palma. The Fausto, a robust and sizable fishing vessel, also served as a carrier of various goods between islands. On June 20, 1968, though, it embarked on a routine voyage to El Hierro, carrying explosives for agricultural use. However, what unfolded over the subsequent days turned into a baffling maritime mystery that remains unsolved to this day. The Fausto was captained by experienced sailors, the Hernandez brothers, and the Costa cousins, known for their experience and reliability. However, on this particular trip, a new element was added to the mix, being Julio Garcia, a mechanical engineer desperate to return to La Palma due to his daughter's illness, who joined the crew last minute. The journey from El Hierro back to La Palma was expected to be straightforward, but the Fausto never arrived at its destination. Despite calm seas, something went wrong. The vessel disappeared and prompted a massive search that initially turned up nothing. Then, unexpectedly, a British refrigerated cargo ship, the Duquesa, found the Fausto adrift far from its intended route. Surprisingly, the crew refused assistance other than supplies, insisting on making their way back alone, a decision shrouded in mystery. Days later, the Fausto disappeared again under even more mysterious circumstances, only to be rediscovered by the Italian merchant ship Anna di Maio 2 months later, adrift in the Atlantic. Aboard, they found the mummified body of what was believed to be Julio Garcia, alongside a haunting notebook with missing pages and a final message to his wife. The narrative of the Fausto, though, is riddled with questions and scant answers. Questions like, why did the experienced crew get so drastically off course? What led them to refuse a tow back to safety? And what were the contexts of the missing pages of Garcia's notebook? Theories range from simple navigational errors and mechanical failures to more sinister speculations of foul play or psychological breakdowns exacerbated by isolation and the stress of survival. Stellar sea cow. Stellar sea cow, once thought to be extinct since the 18th century, has sparked interest among cryptozoologists because of a handful of unconfirmed sightings suggesting it might still exist or have survived much longer than previously believed. The idea that stellar sea cows could still be living stems from reports and anecdotal evidence rather than scientific confirmation, making it a subject of cryptid lore. While the scientific community largely agrees on the extinction of stellar sea cow around 1768, several alleged sightings in later centuries have fueled speculation about its continued existence. These reports primarily come from the regions around the Bering Sea and the Pacific coastlines where the sea cow was originally found. For example, in the late 1700s and early 1800s, native peoples and explorers in the Arctic reported seeing large marine animals that resembled the descriptions of stellar sea cow. More modern accounts include a 1963 report by the crew of a Soviet whaling ship, which claimed to have seen a group of large, seaweed-eating marine animals resembling stellar sea cow in the waters of Kamchatka. Cryptozoologists have theorized that if stellar sea cow has survived, it might be in extremely remote or rarely explored Arctic waters, where sparse human activity would reduce the likelihood of frequent sightings. The theory suggests that small populations could have remained undetected, living in an environment similar to their known historical range, but possibly extending further into less accessible regions. The primary challenge in verifying the existence of stellar sea cow is the lack of physical evidence, though. All supposed sightings have not been accompanied by photographic proof or biological samples. The inhospitable and vast nature of their supposed habitat further complicates research efforts. Additionally, the descriptions from sightings often resemble known animals like walruses or large seals, leading to skepticism about their accuracy. Atmospheric beasts. Atmospheric beasts are one of the most mysterious and interesting subjects in the realm of ufology, cryptozoology, and astrobiology. These entities defy conventional biological categorization and are said to inhabit the skies, displaying characteristics that challenge our understanding of what it means to be a living organism. Unlike any typical animal, these creatures supposedly have the ability to levitate and are often described as semi-solid or partially invisible. Eyewitness accounts suggest that atmospheric beasts come in various forms, including what some describe as sky jellyfish or sky serpents. The former are often mistaken for UFOs because of their unusual appearance and floating movements. Sky serpents, on the other hand, are described as snake-like beings that undulate through the air, resembling the movements of sea serpents but without any aquatic medium. The origins and nature of these sightings have been a topic of speculation, though. Some suggest that these beasts might be native to our planet, possibly resembling an undiscovered form of life that resides in the upper atmosphere where conditions are vastly different from Earth's surface. Others propose that they could be extraterrestrial or even interdimensional in origin, perhaps coming from the atmosphere of another planet or swimming through the cosmos like celestial whales in the vacuum of space. Descriptions of encounters with atmospheric beasts often include details of their interactions with the environment and humans. These creatures are said to be capable of changing their density, being that they can reportedly condense into harder, smaller forms or expand into larger, cloud-like structures, sometimes even achieving invisibility. Reports of their deaths are particularly bizarre, being that when they die, it's said that they fall to the ground as gelatinous masses, often referred to as star jelly, which reportedly evaporates soon after being discovered. Despite their fascinating nature though, atmospheric beasts are not well documented in the scientific community. Skeptics argue that these reports might be misidentifications of natural phenomenon like unusual cloud formations or optical illusions. However, for those who believe in their existence, atmospheric beasts present a profound mystery of nature, one that suggests that skies might be home to forms of life as diverse and complex as those found in the oceans. Donald Crowhurst. The story of Donald Crowhurst, a tragic and mysterious figure in the world of sailing, continues to interest more than 5 decades later after his disappearance. Crowhurst, a British businessman and amateur sailor, entered the 1968 Sunday Times Golden Globe race, aiming to become the first person to sail single-handedly and non-stop around the world. His journey, however, took a dark and dramatic turn that led to deception, despair, and ultimately his disappearance at sea. Donald Crowhurst was not an experienced sailor when he decided to join the race. His entry was motivated by a combination of ambition and desperation, driven by the financial woes of his failing electronics business. To fund his venture, he built a trimaran called Tynemouth Electron and set sail from Tynemouth, Devon on the last day possible under the race rules, October 31st, 1968. His boat was poorly prepared and ill-equipped for the daunting journey ahead, a fact that soon became apparent as he faced numerous technical issues early in the voyage. As Crowhurst sailed into the Atlantic, the reality of his situation and the pressures of his inadequacies became overwhelming. Isolated at sea, with his vessel barely holding together and his hopes of winning the race slipping away, Crowhurst made a fateful decision that would forever alter his course. He began to falsify his navigational logs, creating a fabricated route that would appear as though he was circumnavigating the globe, while in reality he lingered in the Atlantic, never rounding the Cape of Good Hope. Crowhurst's deception was meticulous. He sent false position reports that suggested record-breaking speeds and a successful navigation of the Southern Ocean, all while drifting aimlessly in the Atlantic. His falsified logs were intended not only to preserve his business and family from financial ruin, but also to maintain his public image as a pioneering sailor. As the race progressed, though, the world watched in awe as Crowhurst became an unlikely hero. However, the burden of his deceit and the solitude of the sea took a heavy mental toll. His writings, recovered after his disappearance, reveal a man descending into existential despair and madness. Crowhurst's last log entries are a mix of philosophical ramblings and desperate reflections of his life and the universe. He spoke of cosmic consciousness and human evolution, ideas that consumed his thoughts as his physical journey remained stagnant. The end of Crowhurst's story is as mysterious as it is tragic. His boat was found drifting in the Atlantic in July 1969, with no sign of him on board. It's believed that he jumped overboard, unable to face the unraveling of his deceit upon returning to land. The discovery of his two sets of logs, one real and one fake, unveiled his secret to the world and added a sad chapter to the lore of the sea. The lifeboat on Bouvet Island. The mystery of the abandoned lifeboat on Bouvet Island is part of the mysteries of the Southern Ocean, a place where the wild and the inexplicable converge with the histories of human exploration and misadventure. Bouvet Island, an isolated dot in the vastness of the globe's most turbulent waters, is as foreboding as it is remote. This small, glacier-covered volcanic island, found in the storm-laden expanses far south of the Roaring Forties, is devoid of human habitation and accessible only in the rarest conditions of calm, a speck of land that is more often veiled in fog and buffeted by fierce gales. The lifeboat, discovered in 1964, turned Bouvet Island into a stage for a mystery that combines elements of survival, isolation, and the raw power of nature. The story begins on April 2nd, 1964, when a survey team from the HMS Protector managed to land on the island. Amidst their scientific endeavors, they stumbled upon a half-submerged lifeboat in a lagoon, protected from the ocean's fury but presenting a haunting tableau of abandonment. This unexpected find included a pair of oars and a 44-gallon drum nearby, simple artifacts that sparked complex questions. Questions like, what series of events led this lifeboat to wash up on the shores of one of the world's most isolated islands? The lifeboat, identified as a whaler or ship's lifeboat, held no clues to its origins. No markings or features remained to hint at its journey or the identity of those who might have once manned it. One possibility is that the lifeboat was a remnant of maritime disaster, perhaps belonging to a ship that met its end in the Southern Ocean's unforgiving waters. The lifeboat's presence in the lagoon suggests it may have been used to reach the island, intentionally or otherwise, by survivors. However, the absence of any other evidence, like a campsite or human remains, complicates this theory. It's conceivable that survivors could have landed and perished, or perhaps even left the island, but the lack of substantial evidence leaves such scenarios in the realm of speculation. Another theory suggests that the lifeboat was washed ashore empty. This hypothesis accounts for the lifeboat's worn condition and the absence of personal effects or signs of human activity. The Southern Ocean is notorious for its capacity to carry debris vast distances, depositing it on the shores of distant islands like flotsam on the tides of chance. So that ends the video. I hope you all enjoyed. Leave some feedback in the comments if you have any, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.